Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome to episode 5 of the Schwep Fantasy Football Podcast. As many of you all know by now, and for our new listeners and guests, I am your current Schwep champion of the universe, Michael. It's a pleasure to be back with you guys, and I am gathered here with my two other co-hosts, Ray Bands and Mr. Austin Crans. It's a pleasure to see you guys. How are we doing today, man?
Hey, man. It's fun. We missed last week. We're really sorry about that. We know some of our listeners were a little salty. We just had some issues, miscommunications on the back end, but we're back. We're for sure going to be here every single week, and we just want to let you guys know to keep listening, keep watching. We really, really appreciate it.
So the little technical difficulties that the whole chat had, that was me actually. So I apologize for us not having an episode last week, but like Austin said, we are back. We're going to be here on time every single week. We're ready to roll.
I appreciate Ray taking the blame on this one. I had a couple kids in my line. Where's the pod? Where's the pod? Where's the podcast this week? So we're back. Don't worry, guys. We're here to stay. We're going to be as consistent as possible. And it's a pleasure. With that being said, I think that we should just get right to it. Let's get involved. Let's do a quick little recap, some takeaways of week 6, what we missed in the NFL, and some fantasy stuff too. I'll start off really quickly. My biggest takeaway, fantasy aside, was probably that Bucks Steelers game. It was by far the biggest lopsided favorite underdog in Vegas wise. The Bucks were around like minus 480 or something like that. And I know they were a super popular pick in Survivor throughout many different Survivor pools and stuff like that. And it was just really crazy to see how Steelers, who were like one of the basically almost the worst team in the league, defense and offensively, be able to take it to the Bucks like that. So it just makes me have a lot of questions for Brady and those guys over there. I know the O-line's been banged up and stuff, but honestly, it's not really an excuse to put up such low numbers on a secondary as bad as the Steelers have and stuff. So just a really, really crazy game for me. That's my biggest takeaway from this week. I'm interested to see how Tampa Bay can bounce back and to see if Pittsburgh can keep that momentum going for the future. How about you guys? Anything?
Yeah. One of the big things for me was how that Giants-Ravens game kind of played out. I mean, Lamar and the Ravens were up, and it seems like every game this year they're up and then they just kind of fold. And the Giants moved to 5-1 on some really, really big turnovers from Lamar. Of course, the interception and then like the fumble and like, I don't know. It seems like something's going on with the Ravens, maybe with all the injuries and stuff. They're kind of, off base and whatnot. But that game was really, really, really crazy to me. And to speak to your point on the Steelers Bucks game, I mean, it seems like we saw that meme clip on Twitter of like Tom Brady like reaming the defense, like screaming and everything, kind of turned into like a meme about his family issues or whatever. But it just seems like he's still out there throwing dots and he's moving the offense, but he just can't win alone. Like if the whole team isn't firing on all cylinders, like I don't know, it just seems like they're going to have issues moving forward, and who knows how long Tom Brady's going to stick around. So. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of really, really interesting stuff last week. The Jets, they look nasty. They call them what do they call them? Like the baby squad or whatever now. I know like a lot of people on Twitter, like Gary V's a big Jets fan. He's like pumped about them. I'm pretty sure. Is it Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport? One of them is a big Jets fan. I'm pretty sure too.
It's not Shefty. Shefty's a Giant, I think.
Yeah. So one of them is just they're going crazy. The little baby squad. And, the Finns were kind of derailed, but we got our guy back. So, I don't know.
Our savior.
3-3. Yeah, Lord and Savior, Mr. Tua Tungi coming back.
Honestly, going back to what you said about the Ravens, I was looking at their games after you mentioned it, and we think of them as like a high, crazy offense with Lamar and stuff, but they don't score a lot of points in any of these games. Like, they scored a lot on us, and then in the Patriots game, they scored a lot, but after that, they've just been like really, really low key in the scoring department, and most of their scoring has been happening in the first half. So they're just like totally like tailing off. So that's a pretty good sign there. Honestly, I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I saw some tweet and it was like a graphic of their leads going into like halftime or going into like the fourth quarter. And like every game they're up by 2 touchdowns or like 2 scores. And then by the end of the game, they're just taking it out. Like think about the Dolphins game, we came back how many points, like 3 touchdowns or something. And it was like all in the second half. So, I mean, maybe there's just teams are just going into the locker room and figuring out some way to like pick it back up. But I don't know. Honestly, if they don't start picking it up, like they might be a team that we see like, I don't know, miss the playoffs, maybe like a shock miss the playoffs. The interesting thing to me, another thing that I heard was like, it was something like, I think it was like they have been down by, I don't know, their margin of like how much they've been losing by or something like that has been they've only been losing over the season like for 14 seconds or something like that, and they're like 2-4. Yeah, like they just lose their games at the end.
Yeah, with the Ravens, I think it's more like mental problems because I remember I was watching the game just this last weekend, and the reporter, I forgot who was commentating. He said, we'll see, right, going into halftime when the third quarter started, he said, we'll see if the Ravens can go ahead and hold on to this lead. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, they can't do this again. They got Tuck, if anything. They got Lamar Jackson. But, I mean, we'll get into this a little bit later, but it seems like Lamar Jackson, who we're kind of going to have to start, looking at those numbers and seeing what's going on. I know Bateman's injured. I know JK also is injured. So I know things are kind of a little wonky there, but I guess we'll see. As far as me, I mean, what else do I have to say? The Colts, right? We won a game, winning record. I mean, the season hasn't been fun up to this point, but you guys will see me smiling a lot through this pod because my boys finally again have a winning record at 3-2-1. I mean, we won on a game-winning touchdown, Alec Pierce. You know what I mean? That's
Alec Pierce,
right? That's my guy. We have a Cooper Kupp, I guess that's what they're saying in town. I mean, 3 catches for 49 yards, touchdown. Not the craziest game, but we love a game winner whenever it happens. Deion Jackson stepping up for JT and also Naheem Hines. I love that for the squad. And then Matty Ice, right? The guy we've kind of all been bagging on all season. I mean, 389 yards and 3 TDs. It looks like we kind of rewinded time a little bit back there. And then, of course, right, Michael Pittman. I know you're a big fan of Crans. I'm really, really surprised that, I mean, just the way he was able to come in a divisional game and kind of just go crazy, 13 for 134. And then last but not least, right, the Bengals. Now, I told you guys on that Thursday night football game a couple weeks back, shout out to Tua, that Burrow and those boys were coming in hot. And they were a little upset. They're just coming from the Super Bowl. They were kind of playing a little bad to start out the season. But, I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, my favorite player in the league, everybody over there, everything's clicking on all cylinders. So, I mean, we'll see how the rest of the year goes for those guys.
Yeah, honestly, though, the Bengals do have to be careful because I bet on that game. So I was watching like every snap of it. They went down like 14-0 really, really quickly.
Yeah.
So their secondary, they got to like really lock that in because if they get into like these crazy shootouts with Joe Burrow's O-line being like super sketchy, there's going to be a lot of times where they're just going to send the blitz on them and they might not be able to like get back in the game or it might get out of hand and stuff. But the Bengals are cooking. They're definitely getting hot. And then honorable mention that Bills-Chiefs game. It wasn't up to certain people's standards, like offensively scoring wise. I thought it was going to be like another Rams-Chiefs 50-50 type of game. It had a lot of defense. It could have gone like really high scoring, but literally both first possessions, both the quarterbacks had turnovers. Josh Allen had a fumble and Mahomes had a pick in the red zone. But that game was really interesting. It kind of solidified for me why the Bills have been my favorite to be Super Bowl like the champions this year, like my favorite to win it all, just because their defense is just really, really good. But even then, like it just comes down to anything. Both these teams are so insanely good.
Yeah.
Mahomes could have honestly won that game. Honestly, to me, the reason that those Chiefs lost that game was they got the ball back with like 5 or 6 minutes left. And it was the most passive drive they had of the entire game. They ran the ball like 2 straight times. And then they had like a really weird out route to the sideline on 3rd down. Like when you're playing Josh Allen and stuff, what do you expect if you punt the ball? You think he's just not going to go down the field? Like they've been marching down the field the whole time. Like to me, Andy Reid really folded when they got the ball back almost near the end of the 4th quarter. Because even though you're up, like you got to keep going because like we saw in the AFC Championship last year and stuff, the Bills will come marching and they certainly did. So that was a crazy game, man.
It was. I was thinking during that game, thinking back to the AFC Championship game, whoever got the ball last was going to score. And it seemed like them giving Josh the ball back, you knew he was going to score a touchdown, but then they left like a minute 45 on the clock. And I'm like, oh, Mahomes is going to go down. He's going to tie this game. We're going to go to overtime, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And he just made a slight mistake. And it's like, when one of those quarterbacks makes a slight mistake at the end of the game, it seems like that's what's going to be the difference maker, because on average, they're going to go down the field and they're going to score every single time you give them the ball at the end of the game. They're just super duper clutch. Like we saw we saw Josh Allen score those touchdowns in like however many seconds, and then Mahomes with 13 seconds or whatever get them in field goal position. Like it's just those games are going to be crazy for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and one really big, or a couple actually, from that game is that I think this is the first time in a while, right, that we're seeing that the Chiefs matched up against another powerhouse, right? They don't have Reek anymore, right? Now they still have Kelsey. Now they have Marquez, they have Juju here, who scored a great touchdown. But then you have the Bills, who have all of these playmakers, right? You got Josh Allen. Then you got Stephon Diggs, who had a great touchdown. Then you got Gabe Davis, who I also believe scored. And then a big takeaway also, I think you actually mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, Rosie, the run game, right? The Chiefs to start out the season, right? Clyde and Isaiah Pacheco, they were doing their thing, but it's kind of been lackluster the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, Clyde fell off heavy.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm really sad about that as well. And on the flip, right, the Bills, Devin Singletary has been a pretty efficient guy, right? We're not going to sit here and say he's going to get them 100 yards and a touchdown. But, I mean, Devin, he's out here. I think he had 14 or 15 rushes for 85. And we can kind of see for these games that are going to be a little bit more defensive-oriented, right, the Chiefs are going to have to figure out a way, right, to kind of sustain these drives and keep things kind of stringing on a little bit longer as they used to. Because, like you said, they kind of just got really stagnant. Even when they're trying to move fast, there's just a lot of incomplete passes and whatnot. So, I mean, I think they'll figure it out, because it's Andy Reid and Mahomes at the end of the day. But I think there's definitely some things they got to go ahead and fix over there in Kansas City.
Yeah, lock. And then real quickly, I want to just ask you guys. So like it's kind of solidified the best three teams in the league are Bills, Chiefs, Eagles. How would you guys rank them in terms of like your favorites to win it all? Like who's the best team out of these three?
I'll go first here. I'll go Eagles number one. I mean, not only because of record, but because they are also the most well-rounded. I know the Bills, I'm not sure if they're getting Trey back or anytime soon. When they do get Trey back, overall, I know with the addition of Von Miller, their defense is probably going to be on paper and in real football probably the best. But for right now, I mean, James Bradbury, Darius Slay, and also Fletcher Cox on that D-line for the Eagles. I mean, they're wreaking havoc every week, and the offense is their offense, right? We actually discussed this in the preseason. We were really high on the Eagles because Jalen Hurts, we knew he was going to make strides. And when you have a great elite offensive line, you have a running quarterback, and then you have an efficient back like Miles Sanders, then you go ahead and you add A.J. Brown, who's just an absolute freak. Things just kind of get crazy. Even in a game where they started off slow, right, against the Cowboys, you can kind of see that after time went by, talent kind of just prevails. You know what I mean? After that, it's probably going to be the Bills, of course, and then the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs I might even have lower than number 3 if you want to ask me, but we'll get into that later.
I'll be honest. I think that I hate doing this because it's kind of disrespectful to the only 6-0 team in the league, whatever, or last undefeated team in the league. But I think that the Bills and Chiefs are better than them. I think both teams are better than them. And the reason why I think that is because I think that the Eagles have yet to come across a team that really, really is going to challenge them as much as the other playoff teams have. I mean, their schedule this year, even for the rest of the season, is absolute dirt across the board. And I just think that them as a unit, this team as a unit has not played a powerhouse juggernaut in the way that we see these Bills and Chiefs teams. And I'm not saying that I don't think that they could play up and against them and maybe even beat them. I just think personally, the Bills, the Chiefs, they've been there. They've been to the AFC championships. They've been to the Super Bowl with Mahomes and stuff. I just think I have to rank them above them. Like, I would hate to rank Mahomes below either of them, just putting him as an underdog. But I mean, the Bills beat the Chiefs, so I have to put the Bills 1, then I'll put the Chiefs 2, and then I'll put the Eagles 3.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm looking at the Eagles schedule. They played Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler, and Cooper Rush. I guess out of those guys, you would say Kyler's the best, but like I wish they were scheduled. I guarantee next year there's going to be a schedule where the Bills play them or the Chiefs play them for sure. But their schedule is awful coming up. Like their only like real quarterback they play is Aaron Rodgers, but even then the Packers aren't built like that. So it's tough for me. I would probably, the Eagles are just so complete, like run game, defense, Secondary is really good. I'm just hesitant to see, like, I want to see Jalen Hurts play one of these real guys who like do these miracle plays and shit like that before I can rank them above them. So I'd probably do the same thing and rank the Eagles third, which is kind of crazy, but I'd probably be in the same boat. And then I think like Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the league type shit. So I'm going to rank them one until like there's a devastating injury or some shit, because they just have miracle plays that happen. And then honorable mention real quick, that Chargers Broncos game was legit awful. It was pure comedy. And yeah, I just wanted to give a little honorable mention to that. Herbert, all of them. It was just a weird game all around. Russ, all that shit was just weird.
Yeah, I mean, when Herbert doesn't throw a touchdown after throwing a touchdown in 35 of 36 games in his entire career, you kind of think that the NFL on Thursday or on primetime, like Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, is starting to be a little bit rigged. It's getting a little bit chopped.
Bro, it's mad sketchy how he throws all those touchdowns, and then DraftKings this 1 week, they boost their pick to where it's Herbert was minus 800 to throw a touchdown. They boost it to a plus 100 to throw one touchdown, and he doesn't get it. That shit is weird, bro. I don't fuck with Vegas, man. And they rob you your money. All right. With that being said, let's just transition over real quick to like some fantasy takeaways. You guys got any fantasy takeaways from the last 2 weeks?
Well, for me, really, I mean, besides the Colts, right, who I'm always paying attention to, just the Bengals. I've really been eyeing some teams in multiple leagues, right, that have the Bengals players. That's really what I'm trying to go ahead and really attack right now. And then if we're getting into Schwep, I mean, the past 2 weeks, I know there was a really big trade. Leor's V, right, the chatter of the league, right, he made a really big trade, which I know our buddy Austin Crans over here is pretty upset about, right? But I mean, he honestly really upgraded his team. I'm really happy for him. I still think he's really bad at fantasy, but I think hopes are high for him.
Yeah, I would say my main takeaway is honestly that Alvin Kamara's back, like for sure at this point back. It seems even with Taysom Hill with like the vultures and stuff, when Alvin Kamara is healthy, his workload in general and his efficiency with his touches, like he's a god, man. And his career arc for a running back is going to be longer because he's that shifty, elusive back, catching out of the backfield type guy. Like obviously he runs the ball up the middle and up the gut, but he's not, beasting and feasting on guys like Derrick Henry and stuff. So I don't know. Alvin Kamara is probably back to like a 15+ point guy for me with like the high upside of 30s if he's in the end zone, once or twice. And that I was trying my hardest to get Alvin Kamara from Zvi, but of course everybody in the league gets good deals from Zvi but me. So hardest kid to trade for.
Yeah, my biggest, like my boom, if we're doing like booms, bust, takeaways type thing, for me, like one of my surprises, even though he's on my team, is Austin Eckler. He's been a walking nuke. I looked at his freaking stat line last week. He had 16 targets. Like what?
Remember the beginning of the season, everybody out there, beginning of the season, first 2-3 games, Rosie, he's the worst first round pick ever.
He was the worst ever. He was the worst ever.
So the touchdowns are crazy, man.
Yeah, so for me, Austin Eckler, like he's my huge like spotlight to him. Breece Hall, bro, he's been doing the thing. I'm really happy they're finally feeding him. It's kind of annoying that Michael Carter stole the red zone, like the goal line back to me. When they both could do the same thing, but like they just give it to Michael Carter, I guess, to make him feel like he's involved. And then on the wide receiver side of things for me, I would just say that like it's crazy how Diggs has just been as consistent as he has. He's the number one receiver in fantasy so far. Cooper Kupp's only 3 points behind him. But yeah, that's really about it for me for my fantasy takeaways. And then anything on the tight end department? Not really. Just Kelsey being the guy. He had 4 touchdowns. We missed that, but yeah, man,
bro. QBs are OP. I'm gonna say it over and over, man. I hate that position right now. We have our bonuses make no sense. Like, why are they getting bonus for 40 and 50 at the same time? Like, it's just OD.
Josh Allen has 219 points in our league, and the next in second place Lamar is 183, which is crazy. That's like a full week of extra football type shit. Sure. So he's just the guy, man. He's just the guy. So that basically wraps up. We did a little recap of the NFL, some fantasy stuff. And with that being said, I think we should just get into the injury report and we'll kick off this episode. I'm going to try to make this a lot shorter now because we want to talk about like what we just did at football and stuff like that. So let me just get right into it really quickly. So the first thing I want to talk about is quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, I guess he suffered like a pretty decent hamstring strain. They're saying that he's pretty shaky to play. He was a limited participant in practice yesterday. It's just fantasy-wise, I wouldn't be starting him right now because first off, like their whole offense is just really anemic. Like they don't know their role. They don't know if they want to run the ball. Their passing routes, like receivers are getting confused. It's just really weird for a quarterback. So like your fantasy ceiling isn't that high. And then on top of that, the reason he was getting any plays done was with his legs. Like he was most successful when he would break out of the pocket and like these broken plays that we see Mahomes and Josh Allen constantly flourish in. When your hamstrings like hurt like that and you're not able to do that, your fantasy ceiling is even lower than it was before. So he's a strong sit for me this week, even if he does play, but just watch out for that hamstring injury. And then going over to the running backs, I only have a couple here. JT, obviously he's been dealing with that ankle injury. He was out for like 2 weeks. They did release some news today on him that he actually chose himself to sit out last week, which I really liked. Just from like a player perspective, like you got to understand, like NFL, it's just strictly a business. So when you don't protect yourself and like you push yourself out there and to say he got hurt again and this is a contract year for him, the Colts would have reminded him real quick, like, yo, you're expendable. So salute to Jonathan Taylor for making that decision for himself. And I'm sure fantasy owners are very happy about that because he should probably be close to 100%, if not 100% this coming week. So he's back, which is really good. And then James Conner, last I checked, he's considered a game time decision tonight, according to Kingsbury. So just keep an eye out for that if you're a James Conner owner. And then DeAndre Swift, we know he's been dealing with that shoulder injury for like 3 weeks now, and they just had a bye week. And they're still saying he's pushing towards playing, which is like still kind of weird vocabulary to me. It's still shaky, but I'm expecting DeAndre to play this week. So if you have him, I'm sure you're going to be pretty happy about that. Granted, just like Ray said in the intro, though, I don't see them giving him a full workload, honestly, for the rest of the season because of these little injuries he's had, which is pretty unfortunate. That was one of the reasons like I was okay with trading him, was because he was very efficient on the touches he got, but I just like Jamal Williams isn't going anywhere. You know, he's that red zone back. He's so efficient down there. So yeah, that's why I was like, okay with offing him a little bit. That really does it running back wise. And then wide receiver wise, this one kills me, man. Hollywood Brown, he's dealing with a foot injury. He has a chipped bone, kind of like a fracture in his foot. And I hate that it happened literally in garbage time. The Cardinals like just trying to come back down 2 touchdowns. And it was a fucking interception, dude. Like, It was just so unfortunate when it happens. They just moved him to IR this week. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Their bye week is week 13, I want to say. So maybe expect him back week 14, like fresh off of the bye week. That's like right around the timeline when he'll be back. Just sucks, man. He's a wide receiver 5 on the season. He was doing so good. I saw a tweet that he was like on track for like 1,500 yards, like 15 touchdowns this season, like some crazy thing. So it's just really unfortunate, and we wish all the best for him. Michael Thomas, he's still dealing with that turf toe, like foot injury. He's already been ruled out for tonight's game. I know like Vega put in the chat, he should just retire because he's just injury prone. So yeah, hopefully he's back next week. I don't know how serious it is. Obviously it's been like pretty severe so far. But the Saints could definitely use him because Olave is a guy, but other than that, they really have nobody. So hopefully Michael Thomas comes back soon, but he's out tonight. And then wide receiver wise, another one, Keenan Allen. He's been dealing with that hamstring injury. However, he is expected to be active this week, which is some pretty big news. I'm starting him for sure because it's Keenan Allen and the matchup's great this week. But I'd still temper some expectations for him. Like hamstring injuries usually tend to like, even though they're on the field, like have an effect like a week or maybe 2 weeks after, like they're not like fully there. So just temper some expectations, but he is expected to play. So if you have him, you're probably putting him out there. And then just a real quick one, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, and Jamar Chase, 3 of the freshest receivers in the league. All limited participants in practice. They've been dealing with these hip injuries, but all are expected to play. And then tight end wise, really, really big news here. Darren Waller, hamstring injury. He's basically already being ruled out for this week. He had an interview with a beat reporter and he was like, I'm not likely to play. And then he was a DNP yesterday and today with that hamstring strain that he had in week 5. So he's probably out. And as we saw with Keenan Allen, it's better not to rush these things because you're just going to hurt the team more and they need receivers. They need offense badly. So he's probably out this week. And then Mandrews, really, really weird here. He played like 98% of the snaps. He had no injury designation the entire game. It just randomly happened to where he has a knee injury, and he's been a DNP yesterday and today with that knee injury. I get a DNP on a Wednesday for like a rest day, and then Thursday usually an LP, and then a full practice Friday. But maybe he's just that godlike where he can not practice Wednesday and Thursday. And if he gets an LP in tomorrow, then he should be good to go. But just keep an eye out for that. And that really wraps up the injury report this week. Let me know did I miss anything, guys? Anything that you guys wanted to say?
No, but I literally in the middle of this, we just got mental breaking news. It's not an injury, but kind of similar. Elijah Moore is frustrated with his role and usage and asked for a trade.
Dang, yeah.
So that's interesting. They excused him from practice today for personal matters. We thought it was a family thing, but I mean, he had one target last week. So I don't know. Look for maybe Elijah Moore to either get a ton of targets because I doubt they're going to trade him, or for things to just boil over and maybe he leaves the Jets at some point.
Yeah, honestly, I listen to like Fantasy XM Radio a lot, and there were a lot of different shows were saying like it sucks that as soon as Zach Wilson comes in, like all these fantasy receivers just died on the Jets. Like you can't depend on any one of them. Which football wise, like it's obviously working for them. The Jets are doing really well and stuff. But it sucks when like a quarterback doesn't like favor a single receiver, how Flacco was with Garrett Wilson and stuff like that. But granted, Elijah Moore, like I get it. Like as a player, you want to be involved, but they have really good receivers like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore. Corey Davis is really good too. Like he's not just like some random bozo. He's like a really good third string receiver to have. And then their tight end Conklin, he's solid too. So and then they have really good running backs with Breece Hall. So it sucks. We'll see if he gets traded. I would like to see him go to like maybe the Rams. They're struggling to move the ball a lot, so we'll see where that happens.
Garrett Wilson, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, it would
going to a better team would be lit.
Yeah, dude, it would be. I don't know, man. But Ray, did I miss any injuries? Anything that you wanted to say, or nah?
No, I think you got basically everything.
All right, for sure. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's toss it over to both of these guys right here, and we'll do a quick Schwep recap of the last two previous weeks. Let's hear it.
Well, I'll go ahead and I'll start. I unfortunately took a bad loss to Mamba for Life, our good friend Vega, right, Mr. Cheater. Now, I mean, besides that, I mean, some people took some pretty good W's. I know Kranz and Shvi actually made a trade, or not, they didn't make a trade. Shvi made a trade, and they played each other. Shvi, unfortunately, came out with the dub. I know Kranz is pretty upset with that, but I mean, we're all pretty close to making the playoffs, so we kind of just got to stick strong there. Who else took a good W? Let's see here. Max Brown. I mean, a guy who people don't usually expect to go ahead and take fantasy that serious, right? This year he's taking it a lot more serious, I think. He took a nice W, and then of course Shevil, right? The league's number one op, I would say, right? I mean, he was the number one scorer in the whole league, 161. I know he's happy. He gets DeAndre Swift back this upcoming week. So, I mean, right now, trending upwards, I would say probably Shevil. Hopefully my team, I got JT back this week, so hopefully things are looking good.
Yeah, it was an interesting week. I mean, we saw the highest scorer in the league get beat, scoring only 111 in you, Rosie, which was very interesting. And did you have somebody on bye? You had Tay on bye, right? After
I had Tay and Brandon Cooks on bye.
Yeah, Tay and Brandon Cooks on bye, which I mean, those are definitely one of the. Tay was obviously a big bolster to your wide receiver core, so it makes a little bit of sense. But 111 was pretty low, and then Kyle being a super juggernaut, scoring sub 90 is just like wild. But yeah, I mean, I'm salty, man. I score 130 every week. The silver lining is that we are points for because you guys love the points for tiebreaker. So if I can get into a tiebreaker for that sixth spot, and I'm still up there in points, hopefully I can take a dub. But
honestly, though, the way Sleeper runs their app is you can't change it.
Oh, you can't do head to head?
No, Sleeper has it to where they automatically playoff standing. It's like the first thing they decide for is points for, and then if it's like exact to the decimal, they do head to head. And if that's even, they go whoever has more scored points against them. That's what they would do. So if you have more scored on you, they would put you above the next person. But we do like decimal points and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, crazy. Honestly, no hate to Zvi. It was a crazy game. I think Higbee getting 1 point was like really an anomaly, and then Kyler folding really hurt you a lot. And then in my game, it was just I had an absolute disaster. Jeff Wilson, he fumbled the ball, so they didn't give him another touch in that game. Granted, it was like he kind of got game scripted out as well because Atlanta really went up on them. And then that whole Melvin Gordon fiasco, like obviously we saw him clearly frustrated on the sidelines. He didn't do anything wrong in the game. He had 3 carries, and then they literally just benched him for Latavius Murray.
What's good with Hackett, man?
Yeah, it's just really weird to me. And then, like, that was a huge thing on social media all weekend. And then Hackett literally got questioned in the interviews, and they were like, Melvin's the starter this week. Like, I had a good talk with him. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, man, just weird. I don't get Nathaniel Hackett, but I had a really bust week. And then, well, Daniel can't catch a break, honestly. He drops points every single week, and he loses and loses and loses. And he's
in the same boat as me, man.
Yeah, so it's crazy, and you guys are both 2-4 too, which is crazy. But yeah, so it was another crazy week in Schwep. The standings are finally getting closer. We don't have an Owen in the league more. Congrats, V. So yeah, let's get this thing rolling. And with that being said, let's cover some Schwep matchup. Boys, who wants to go first?
I can go ahead and go first, and I'm gonna go ahead and start with your guys' matchup. We got Ray versus Rosie, ops of the week.
What did it, Ray? What did it?
We already did me versus Ray, and obviously in the first episode it was me, or what was it, second episode, me versus you, Rosie. So now we're getting the trifecta of Ray versus Rosie. So this is the closest prediction by sleeper by far. It is I think it's separated by just decimal points, I think. You guys are both predicted 134, 133, split by 0.4 points. Really, really close. Of course, Mr. White Mike is on by Mr. Josh Allen, which is unfortunate. But of course, the idiot league lets you get Dak Prescott when he's healthy and back. So, man, I don't know what people are thinking. We got people out here picking up We got people out here picking up Trevor Lawrence. We got people out here picking up Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, come on, man. I don't know what y'all be doing. Man, it's killing me. But on the other side, Ray, he's pushing Mr. Tungy on Sunday Night Football. Mr. Tua. It's crazy, man.
What are we doing?
Sometimes these stats guys, they put aside the stats. They put aside their biases. They say, man, fuck it. This is a good matchup. We're going to get our boy in the prime time. So, yeah, that's crazy. I'm really interested to see both quarterbacks coming off injury, so that'll be really, really interesting. And then Marquise going out, of course, is a massive L for you. And just to put salt in the wound, Ray is getting JT back off of his injury, which is a big boost. I mean, his matchup or his matchup is not the best matchup. But you want JT playing if he's on your team every week. He's obviously a huge asset. So in this one, it's a big, the matchups are very interesting. Rosie kind of has the RB upside matchups. The matchups look a little bit, good, but there's interesting things with Jeff Wilson. Like, he got scripted out last game, and I know you're hoping that the Chiefs don't go up by a lot and he gets scripted out again, because not only will that make Jeff Wilson too much of a non-factor, on the other side, Ray with Deebo Samuel is going to see a ton of targets, a ton of yards. So that'll be interesting to see. But in all things considered, with your choices at your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 spot, and of course Keith's going out, Ray is smoking that Rosie wide receiver pack this week. He's just got much bigger namesake, better matchups. I just like his wide receiver matchups a lot more. Of course, like I said, Deebo Samuel versus Kansas City, Godwin in a super matchup versus Carolina. You just put in Darnell Mooney over who did you have in there? You had DJ Moore in there, which when I was breaking this matchup down was really a tough part for me. Like, I was thinking DJ Moore could have 0 points.
Literally.
He could literally have 0 points. And so putting in Darnell Mooney, his targets have been on the rise. The Bears have been a little bit more productive. I don't know if I like Mooney over DJ Moore. It's just, you can't, I don't like either of them, but it's just going to go with your gut. And of course, Devontae, the matchup fantasy points per game to wide receivers is pretty tough. I mean, Devontae's Devontae, so he's going to get his, I'm sure, but he's going up against some tough. They move him everywhere, so Derek Stingley isn't too much of a tough matchup. But thanks to the tool that Ray sent us, we saw that the second cornerback and the slot cornerback for Houston are actually really, really solid. So if they move him around, maybe he gets locked down a little bit in other places where he usually sees some production. And then we got a battle of the questionable tight ends here. We got Freiermuth, who's questionable. He's back. He's fully back from the concussion. I'm sure he's going to play. Miami's always a really good matchup for tight ends, and he's a monster. We don't know if it's Pickett or if it's Mitchell Trubisky. I think if it's Mitchell Trubisky, it's honestly better for you in terms of like the targets that Booth is going to get and things like that. And of course, Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst is questionable. He's been limited. He's been questionable like every week, but he still plays. I like Hurst. He's solid. He's very athletic, but on that team with all the options they have in the passing game, it's always hit or miss with him. So I have them kind of equal in my rankings in terms of their points. The one thing is, though, that Rosie's X factor is Mr. Austin Eckler, like we said in the beginning of the show. If Eckler has a game versus the Nukes of Seattle, like we've seen every single week, man, he could go for 3 touchdowns again, man. That'll be really, really scary. And if he pops off, like, that's all you need. You need 135, 40-pointer, and you're covering, a Darnell Mooney trash game or whatever. The thing is I put down that DJ and Melvin, so I'll switch it over to Darnell. Darnell and Melvin are just too weak for me in your lineup, going up against Sutton, who, I mean, is going up against a really tough matchup in the Jets. But I still like the prospect of kind of Sutton versus like over Darnell Mooney. If we're going to say Godwin or Sutton over Mooney, both of them I like over Mooney in that situation, just because Sutton he's such a big target for Russell Wilson. So he has that ability to just go up and get a touchdown in the end zone if they can move the ball. And even Terry McLaurin, I mean, it's a bad matchup against Green Bay, but Green Bay has looked terrible and teams have been productive against Green Bay. So I like McLaurin over Melvin for sure. We'll see if Melvin is the starting running back. I don't know. That scares me. I think in this one, I had to choose. If I had to choose, even though it's close, I'm giving Ray close dub in this one. I have Dak and Tua about on the same page. Jeff Wilson and Aaron Jones on a similar page because Aaron Jones has been, anemic with that offense. Eckler, I can't be disrespectful. I have to put him over JT due to matchups and JT coming off the injury. But I have Debo scoring more than Tay purely because of the matchup, purely because of his targets, things of that nature. Godwin definitely over DJ and Darnell Mooney. Cooks can put up the same points as Sutton. We could see the same thing. Obviously, Freiermuth and Hurst are going to have equal points. And then I have Terry getting more points for the PPR and the wide receiver value over Melvin. So yeah, I'm giving it to Ray with a really close dub. I don't think it'll be a grinder, but I think Ray's taking this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, honestly, this is the first week for me. Like, I picked myself to win every week. But this is the first week where like no voodoo on God, like everything. I just don't think I'm really gonna have like a huge shot to win. Like if I do, there's gonna have to be some crazy stuff that happens. It sucks having Josh Allen and Goddard on bye at the same exact time, and then losing Marquise just really hurts. And then I've got the questions at running back, just like you said. Honestly, I just can't trust DJ Moore right now. Like he got me 3 points last week. He got 7 targets, but Sam Darnold just came off IR, so maybe he's back after this 1 week. But for now, like I really can't trust him. And like I guess the targets have been up for Mooney. There's like it's nothing I could really say. Like he's mids as well. Like Chicago is just mids all around. Maybe like it's a Monday night juicer. I don't know, but I'd probably favor Ray in this one, which is very unfortunate for me. I think like my team's on the decline right now, not on like an incline, which is really tough. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Ray, what do you think?
So I mean, of course, you know me. I'm gonna pick myself to win every week, right? I mean, who would have thought that? I think again, it's gonna be pretty close. I'm just really scared because you guys know me. I've been a matchup guy from year one, and it's gonna be like that forever. Dak Prescott, he's back. He's healthy. Definitely gonna want or have something to prove against the Lions. He has a really good matchup against them, right? Next, right? I mean, the matchup for Jeff Wilson is good. I mean, I'm hoping he gets scripted out like last week, right? But again, things could also change. Austin Eckler, as you guys went over, that's his upside pick. And another one of his upside picks is his wide receiver one in Devontae. So really, I'm just afraid of his team. I think my team's going to be consistent. I'm going to get my 15, 20 per player, put up 120, 130. I'm just hoping and praying that I don't get those 40 spots from Vontae, Eckler.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if Mooney scores 30 points, I mean, I'll quit playing fantasy for the rest of the year.
Yeah, honestly, like Dak Prescott, the matchup's great. So like if he could give me like 25 points, bro, like I think I could be in like good shape to have a shot. But week one, he just looked not good, even when he was like fully healthy, So we'll see what happens. The matchup's really good though. And then real quickly, I wanted to say, you mentioned like Pat Fryermuth and Kenny Pickett and stuff. It's just very interesting to me how this kid could suffer a concussion, then he's a full participant in practice on Wednesday. Okay, like where's the energy here when Tua had that? I get it. Like you can't practice even though you cleared concussion protocol, but this kid has a concussion as a full practice on Wednesday. Like I don't get it. The NFL makes absolutely. Teddy Bridgewater didn't even have a concussion and he couldn't practice all week and was ruled out. But this kid has a concussion mid-game and then he can practice fully on Wednesday. Bro, the league hates us, man.
Hey, but the league doesn't hate the Finns, man. We're chasing clout with that take. Come on, man.
Really quickly, to the next matchup, I did want to mention my wide receivers with Cortland. He's going to get the Sauce Gardner treatment this week, which I'm scared of. I'm a big, a Sauce Gardner guy, and he's locked for me. And then also Terry McLaurin, he gets the Jair Alexander treatment this week. And I mean, look, again, I'm a matchup guy. You're going up against two top 5, top 7 cornerbacks. I mean, it's pretty scary, but I mean, of course, hopefully we go ahead and take out the dub with Rosie having those big bye weeks from Josh Allen. And, of course, RIP, my boy, well, not really RIP, but RIP that foot from my boy Marquise Brown. Shout out to Hollywood.
Yeah. My whole identity's cooked, bro. My name is literally Hollywood Cooking, bro. Like, I'm shocked right now. I'm shocked.
So funny.
So yeah, with that being said, all right, so all three of us essentially have Ray winning this one. So that's that, and then Ray, we'll throw it over to you for the next matchup.
Okay, perfect. It's actually my favorite matchup, even better than our matchup, Rosie. We have Kranz, ETN Lamb on a Lear Jet versus his number one top op of 15, 20 plus years, Shevil.
Spicy.
Right? So look, I mean, this is a really intense matchup, which we're actually probably go ahead and double and triple up on when it comes to Schwep Drama Island, right? So, I mean, we'll go ahead and start off with the QBs. Kyler Murray, right? Double XP God. He actually goes ahead and plays here in a couple hours here on Thursday Night Football. Hopefully he can go ahead and get the job done. I mean, pretty decent matchup. New Orleans is number 13 versus the QB in points given up. The thing is, New Orleans, they are pretty banged up, right? Marshawn Lattimore, right? He is also out. Kyler Murray gets DeAndre Hopkins back, although he did lose Marquise Brown and also got Robbie Anderson. Of course, Robbie Anderson's new pick. We'll see how much play he actually gets. So I think that's going to be a pretty good matchup for Kyler. I think he also has something to prove, especially on primetime. On the other hand, Sevilla, he has Russell Wilson in. I mean, look, Sevilla, I know you got that ring, you got some hardware, but I mean, this is not the move of a champion.
Keep him in.
Right, I think you do have Geno Smith on the
test of the pod. This is the test of the pod. We'll see. I told him to bench him last week and he didn't. So
we'll see. We'll see if he can make the right decision this time. I think he's still kind of holding on to Russell being Russell, right? And maybe hopefully things can kind of turn around. But I mean, look, the Jets are number 21 fantasy points given versus QBs. They've been playing, I want to say, damn near lights out lately. Again, as we went over, my boy Sauce and Mark Gardner, part of that defense, right? And then also the Jets defense, they have Keenan Williams, and that line has actually been wreaking havoc. They're kind of healthy right now. They're kind of putting in some pain. Broncos offense in general is dirty. I mean, look, every game that we go ahead and watch them, we can guarantee it's going to be a bad game, right?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, aside from that, I mean, we can go ahead and give that advantage over to Kranz with Kyler Murray for sure. Now, starting with the RB1 spot, right? Your guy, right? I think in about 3-5 leagues or more, maybe even. Travis Etienne, right? Who, I mean, you know me, he wasn't out for me for a couple of weeks because I'm a big James Robinson guy, but he's definitely been, showing some flashes, the explosivity, like you've been kind of alluding to the past couple of weeks. The Giants, they're number 23 fantasy points per running back. So I mean, it's a bad matchup. The Jags have kind of cooled off, but ETN definitely has started to kind of, I want to say, sadly, separate himself from that backfield. So even if it's a barn burner, it's a terrible game, or if it happens to be high scoring, I think ETN is going to get some play there. So pretty decent running back spot there for him. DeAndre Swift, on the other hand, for Sevilla after that big time trade, I know that that's something that Sevilla's definitely banking on, right? So with DeAndre Swift, I mean, look, the past couple years, he's an elite on-field talent with his eyes. He looks like one of the best, most talented running backs ever, right? But he just gets nicked up way too easy, right? I think he's kind of entering that glass territory that we all love to go ahead and use.
For sure.
Dallas is number 26 fantasy points given to running backs. And we all know that defense is fast. They move. They've been another team that's been, shut down this year. So, I mean, look, the Lions are coming off of a bye. DeAndre is healthy. I mean, we can't say anything other than the Lions are going to play well in general. But there, I mean, off of name value and pop value, we'll give it to DeAndre with Sevilla. But if you want me as a fantasy analyst here, right, as a Schwepper, it's probably a pretty even matchup. Next at the RB2 spot for Austin Kranz, Josh Jacobs, right? A real big guy for both of us preseason. I mean, absolute elite matchup. Houston number 1 in fantasy points given to the RB. So, I mean, this is one of those spots where you kind of say Josh Jacobs. I mean, he was already performing at an elite level, especially the past 2 weeks. Now he's getting targets in the backfield. They are also coming off of a bye. They're absolutely terrible at 1-4. So this is definitely a must-win game. I think they're going to actually start leaning on him a little bit more. Derek Carr, I know he got Vontae Adams, Darren Waller's injured, so I think they're definitely going to go ahead and try to lean on Jacobs, especially with that matchup, right? And then, of course, on the other hand, Dameon Pierce, right? I love that Pierce name, right? I think we'll allude to that later on. Dameon Pierce for Sevilla, right? Another guy coming out 2 great weeks, rookie guy. Has been a sensation. Las Vegas is actually number 19 in fantasy points given to the running back position. They're off a bye. So, I mean, Dameon Pierce, he's going to be a good play. I think he's kind of a locked and loaded, going to give you at least 12 to 15, maybe even upside for 2025 every week. I'm pretty
real quick, Ray, though. Their coach literally said that they want to give him like minimum 20 touches a game from here on out. 20 touches a game. Yeah, Damien, the head coach said that. So that's fire.
There's a new horse in the league?
I don't know. We'll see, but that's really good.
Yeah, so that, I mean, matchup-wise, it's pretty even. Of course, a slight edge to Josh Jacobs over there with the number 1 matchup for running backs. And, I mean, he's been a stud, so we're definitely going to go ahead and give the edge to Kranz there. Now, wide receiver 1, our guy, Seidy Lamb, right? A guy who, I mean, when Dak went down, we kind of had our doubts about if he was going to go ahead and perform, but it looks like he honestly hasn't missed a step. If not, he stepped up, right? So Detroit, they're number 8 in fantasy points given to the wide receiver. I mean, Seidy usually plays in the slot normally, so he has an elite matchup versus Mike Hughes. And again, the big thing going on in Dallas is that Jerry Jones and that whole team, they got Dak back. So just in general, the upside of players like Seidy and all their skill position players is going to go ahead and rise a lot. So really good play for Kranz there. On the other hand, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, right, for Sevilla. Another Detroit Lions. So I know Sevilla, he's a Dolphin fan, but he's a big Detroit Lions fan this week. He's coming off the injury. They're coming off a bye, so that whole team's healthy. So, I mean, I know definitely it's something that Kranz is looking at like, damn, that game has a pretty high or one of the highest over-unders of the whole week. There's definitely going to be points scored. Amon-Ra has been playing like an absolute stud the whole year. He had an off game before the bye, I think because of his injury. But with that bye, I think he's going to be back. So pretty even there. I really can't go ahead and give you guys a solidified pick. But if I were to, it's going to have to go ahead and give it to Kranz because, I mean, Dak's back. Seidy is Seidy. I think he's just a little bit more consistent than what, Amon-Ra can go ahead and give you on a week-to-week basis. Now, wide receiver 2 spot, my guy. I'm hoping for this guy to go ahead and go crazy, right? Mr. Penguin, right? Mr. Happy Feet, Jalen Waddle, right? I mean, again, for the Dolphins, across the board, elite tier matchup. They play an absolute banged up and just hurt Pittsburgh secondary. They're number 1 fantasy points given to the wide receiver. So, I mean, as long as he can kind of get over those little issues he's been dealing with injury-wise the past few weeks, I think he should be fine. I know he kind of messed up his shoulder towards the end of the game last week, but I think he should be good to go. And, of course, you guys get God back. right? Who I'm starting in my matchup, so I can't hope for anything but for Jalen to go crazy, right? I'm a big Dolphins fan this week, definitely. Another really good wide receiver play for Crayons, which again I think he's not really surprised by because that's kind of the mindset that he went into the season with, right? He's got two studs on the bench, but even with these two guys, his team doesn't even look like it's taken too much of a fall off. On the other hand, for Sevilla, Juju Smith-Schuster, right, a guy that I personally love as a football player and as a guy in general. Look, last week he had a really, really, really fire touchdown where he bounced off a couple defenders and scored a bomb, right? And he's been getting pretty consistent targets. He has a pretty decent connection with Mahomes. But, I mean, look, they play the 49ers, who, for as long as I've been watching football, I mean, they've had an elite, if not damn near elite secondary. So, I mean, it's clear and obvious we're going to go ahead and give the advantage to Crayons there. Wide receiver 3. Big favorite of, I think, everybody in this chat here, Garrett Wilson. Right now, Denver, they're number 31 fantasy points given to wide receivers, so it's a tough matchup. He actually is going to get a little bit of certain, but this is actually something that I was doing some research right before the pod. Garrett Wilson actually plays out of the slot, which I didn't actually know. So, I mean, it's a tough matchup regardless against Quan Williams, who I don't know too much about, but apparently he's a shutdown nickel corner. So good play talent-wise, really, 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 really tough matchup situation-wise. On the other hand, Alec Pierce, right? My guy, right? My Cooper Kupp, the Indianapolis own Cooper Kupp. Tennessee, number 2 fantasy points given a wide receiver, so elite level matchup there. And the good thing with him, which I'm really happy about, right, fantasy-wise, and aside from fantasy, is that the Colts offense, right, my boys are there just looking a little bit more in groove. Our line is getting a little bit more healthy, and Alec, I mean, scoring that game-winning touchdown. Whenever you do something like that, you gain the trust of your quarterback, right? And I also see that he's kind of a third down valve. So if that first read for Pitt or maybe that tight end read for Mo Alley Cox isn't open, Alec Pierce is most likely going to get the ball. So I'll definitely give the slight edge to Sevilla there with Alec Pierce. Down to tight end, Crayons went streamer super mode, right, with Daniel Bellinger, who's actually had a pretty good game. I think he had about 10, 11 points last week. One thing that I actually saw, I went back and watched some tape just a little bit on him. The Daniel Jones to Daniel Bellinger connection is pretty strong. You know, again, another safety valve for Daniel, for Daniel Jones, if he doesn't have any other reads down the field. Jacksonville's number 22 points, given a tight end. So, I mean, bad matchup, but I mean, Daniel Bellinger's had 2 games. We'll see what he can do. And then on the other side, of course, we're going to go ahead and give the advantage to Sevilla because he has, you know, Marky Mark, that guy, him, right?
Maybe
he's out. We'll see.
Maybe he's out. He is a little bit dinged up, right? I believe, did he practice today? No,
DNP back-to-back days.
Yeah,
so it's weird. He didn't have any injury designation like during the game or anything.
And they said yesterday was a rest day.
Huh?
Did it come up like in the middle of the week, like during practice, or?
No, like after the game, like on like Monday morning, they said like he was dealing with some knee stuff, but I don't know. It's just weird. I think he's gonna play, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more. It's kind of just more of a monitoring situation. I mean, if he was hurt, I think we would kind of get some early indications of that. Aside from that, Cleveland's number 21 fantasy points given a tight end. But again, I don't really think it matters because I went back and actually looked the past couple years. I mean, in full point PPR, Mark Andrews has maybe 1 game without double digits versus the Browns. So he's kind of a Browns killer. I think he's going to go crazy regardless.
Yeah.
And of course, Bateman's still out. So he's going to be the target hog over there. And then at the flex position, for Crayons, another guy, I know we've been talking about fantasy football all preseason and in season. So Ramondre Stevenson, a guy that we all love, has been going absolute nuke. He is what we all thought he was going to be, but he actually got the opportunity these past couple of weeks with Damian Harris being a little bit injured. I do believe you guys told me Damian Harris is probably going to play this week, though, right?
Yeah, he was a full practice today.
Yeah, so I mean that's annoying on an opportunity standpoint, but I definitely do think Ramondre kind of has separated himself a little bit to where he's going to get, you know, at absolute worst a 55-45, 60-40 split. Chicago, great matchup versus the running backs. They're number 7 in points given. I think he's going to go ahead and give you 15, 20 points out there regardless because, I mean, I think Bailey Zapp is still starting. I mean, their offense looked pretty good. They scored 38 points last week. They play the Bears, so he's definitely going to get good work. So good play for Crayons there at the flex position. And then for Ethan Shevil, Ezekiel Elliott, right? Another actually has an elite matchup. Detroit's number 2 in fantasy points given to running back. So I mean, he had an okay game last week. He had a really nice, I think, 15, 20-yard scamper to the left-hand side, which I know a lot of us weren't expecting. He looked a little shifty. Tony Pollard is talented as he is, eye test wise. It hasn't really been working out for him. So I mean, with Dak back, maybe they go ahead and go up 24-7 on the Lions, and then maybe Zeke goes ahead and gets those original 20-25 touches he's used to getting the past couple years. And then just really quickly, and this is really, I don't like to get into kicker or defense too much, but because I think this matchup is going to be really, really close, I think it was important just to at least dive into the kickers a little bit. Crayons actually picked up Harrison Butker. I know he had a pretty decent 9-point game last week after the injury. They play San Francisco, who's number 1 versus kickers. Not that it matters too much, but this game's probably going to have a decent higher over and under, but it's a game where we might not see a whole bunch of touchdowns. Yeah, Mahomes might get down the field, he might get down the field, but once they get over there, it might be a bend, don't break type of situation. So Butker's going to get his fair share opportunity. And then Young Ho Koo, he's actually coming off of 2 really, really bad games. But again, another game, they play the Cincinnati Bengals, so it's going to be, a pretty high-scoring game. He's going to get opportunities, but I'll definitely go ahead and give the advantage to Crayons there. And I mean, overall, after all of that, I actually told these guys before the pod, I didn't know who was going to win this matchup. I really didn't. Yeah. Especially with Crayons, having hit those 2 bye weeks with Jay Jeff and AJ Brown, we didn't know, but his team doesn't look that bad. And I think for this week, I'm gonna have to go ahead and go with my boy Austin Crayons, and this is because it's just a little bit more solid at that QB position. I think Kyler's gonna have a good game tonight. And elsewhere, I just think the DeAndre Swift thing for Sevilla, in the future, a couple weeks from now, he's gonna pop off for 20, 30, 40 points, but this definitely ain't gonna be the week for it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, honestly, to me, this is just like a really a prove it week, not for Crayons and Sevilla, but for the players on their team. Kyler really, really needs to show us some stuff. Russ, I told you guys in the injury report, I think he's a strong sit this week. I think that Sevilla should 100% put Geno Smith in there, shoot somebody from waivers. I'm off for Russ this week. And then receiver wise, I give the advantage to Crayons because his core is really well. It's a really big prove-it game for Amon-Ra St. Brown fantasy wise. We know he's a stud in general, but we're interested to see if he can keep that consistency up that he had at the end of last year and in the first 2 weeks of the beginning of the season this year. So it's interesting to see how he's going to do there. And then Alec Pierce, if it wasn't for that game-winning walk-off, he wouldn't have popped off, really. I'm going to get into Alec Pierce and Schweb Drama Island a bit because there's a funny story about that one. But I think it's just a really interesting game. Crayons, I have a question for you, though. Would you not rather put in a waiver for Robert Tonyan over Daniel Bellinger?
So my tight end position right now is a little bit fluid. I'm tight end fluid right now. Pause. But there's a couple guys that I'm eyeing on the waivers to slot in for him. I even like Cade Otton a little bit. Evan Ingram's there. Hunter Henry with Mac Jones, if Mac Jones plays. Even with Zappy, see some work. Mike Gesicki maybe even could get play there versus Pitt. But I just like Daniel Bellinger, and the Giants have been playing very well. The matchup kind of scares me, and so honestly, I would have picked up Freiermuth. I was just waiting for him to clear concussion protocol, and then you scooped him, so it's kind of a nothing there. But a lot of the other guys, there's some issues, some sketchiness there. I think that a lot of the guys on the list, even Tonyan, they're very, very similar. I think they're all going to be in that 5-point or 12-point range. Sure. They're never going to pop off. They're never they'll probably get at least 3 to 5, but I just got to pick the one that hits 10.
And that's the risk of the tight end landscape is just miserable if you don't have these top guys. That's, you're really just rolling the dice with any of them. We'll see though. In this matchup, I'm for sure going to give the W to Crayons. It's going to be close. If Kyler doesn't put in work tonight, it's going to be even closer than it needs to be. But it's going to be a close game. Kicker wise, I like Butker, even though he's got all my young hoes coup. It's going to be a good matchup. This is definitely one of my favorite matchups this week to keep an eye out for. And it's a huge swing too. Sevilla can go 4-3 and Crayons can go 3-4, or there can be even more league separation. So I definitely have Crayons winning this one. And then Crayons, are you picking yourself or?
Yeah. So last week I said it's an auto dub for Sevilla, right? But with Diggs on bye, who I didn't realize was on bye, Devontae Smith, who's also a really solid flex for him on bye, and his quarterback situation, obviously Swift coming off the injury, we may see some limitedness, and then just the pure upside of my players this week. Like you said, this is a prove it week for the players. We got Kyler with D-Hop back. I got CeeDee Lamb with Dak back. I got Jalen Waddle with Tua back. Like, there's just so much upside for my team that if in the case that my upside players hit, like, it's going to be really tough for Sevilla to beat me unless he gets like a super popper 40-week Amon-Ra. And even then, like, with Diggs on bye, like, he's going to need to see production from players for him that I just don't necessarily think are going to put the production forward. So, I mean, I'm obviously going to pick myself, but I was bleak before, but I'm more confident now for sure.
Yeah, speaking of bye weeks, another thing that hurt for me too was like Darrell Henderson had a decent game last week, and I have him on bye too. Like, I got rocked this week.
Yeah, Higbee on bye too, which is
Higbee on bye too. Yeah, so bye weeks are coming in hot. So yeah, that's going to be a really good game. I'm excited to see what happens. We'll see. It's gonna get a little spicy in that group chat on Sunday. So we'll see what's popping. Honestly, low key, you need to do like some crazy voodoo prayer that a quarterback doesn't go off on you, because these quarterbacks, they have it out for you, my friend. I think
really do.
It's all the shit talking. Oh, we got to nerf them. Like, they're overpowered. They hear you, bro. They're coming for you.
I swear. Listen, this is the week. Russ got the hamstring. He's got the lat tear. He's got all this stuff. He can go off for 30. Just watch.
He did on Ray on some crazy shit. So that'll be a good matchup. And then with that being said, I'll take over the next matchup. Mm-hmm. I've got Los Angeles, who's 2-4, versus King Henry's Chubb, who's 3-3. So we got Daniel versus Kyle in this one. It's going to be a pretty good game. Quarterback, they've got a quarterback battle that's very solid here. We got Justin Herbert versus Patrick Mahomes. I think Herbert's in a huge position to have a really good bounce back game this week after not throwing a single TD last week. Like we said, DraftKings super sketchy. I don't know, man. Give me my money back, Vegas. Brown. I'm looking at you. So yeah, I think he's in a prime position for a huge bounce back. And then Seattle ranks in the bottom tier according to DVOA versus the pass. So I think he's a really high-end QB this week. And then Pat Mahomes, as Ray was talking about before with like Butker, it's like not an easy matchup for as long as we've known. San Fran gives everybody problems. They rank in top 7 versus the pass versus the QB. I expect like a very grinded out game. I think Kansas City might try to force feed run the ball a lot, because I don't think they're afraid of San Fran scoring a lot of points like that. But another surprising thing that I wrote down was that a lot of defenses this year are playing man versus Mahomes, because these receivers are having a really tough time, like taking the top off the defenses and like covering them. So they're risking it and they're playing that man coverage, which is really why we're seeing Kelsey go crazy, because it's really hard to stop him in those first 15 yards of contact. But any given play, since they're playing so much man on Mahomes, like if somebody breaks free, if a McCole Hardman breaks free, like Kyle's already going to have a banger week off of like the bonuses that we have, and like it being such a high scoring league for quarterbacks. So he just constantly has such a tremendous upside if defenses are going to play with fire like that. So I think he's a high-end QB this week because he's literally like walking God, but maybe temper expectations a bit because of the matchup. I have Herbert ranked as the QB3 and Mahomes as the QB2 this week. So it's a really close toss-up for me, but I will give the advantage to Kyle just because Herbert hasn't shown me that eliteness yet, and then Mahomes has. And it's crazy because their ADPs, they were going like back-to-back. Like, it was Josh Allen consensus one, and then it was Herbert or Mahomes. Like, we didn't know which one was going to take which. Most people probably took Mahomes, but I was very high on Herbert. I was never in the chance to make that decision, but probably in a lot of leagues I would have taken Herbert because I was so high on them this year. I know Ray was too. But it really just hasn't came to fruition like we thought it would be. So I'm going to give Kyle the matchup at the quarterback position. And then going over to the ground game, we've got CMC and AJ Dillon on Daniel's side of the ball. And then we've got Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb on Kyle's side of things. It's just crazy reading those names. They're nukes. So Christian McCaffrey, he continues to be a high-end RB1 with an elite floor because of his involvement in the passing game. Even like with all this quarterback roulette that's going on, he's just a monster. He had 8 targets last week and 12 the week before. So his floor is just so high every week because of these constant targets. And he's always going to be involved, especially with all this these rumors going around about DJ Moore being traded and stuff like that. I don't think he'll be traded, but like all of these just make it easier to just throw the ball to Christian McCaffrey because he's always going to be there in the dump off game to be open. And Tampa Bay is a tough matchup on the ground, but I said it like 2 weeks ago on the pod, they are kind of vulnerable with running backs through the air. As we saw last week, first touchdown the Pittsburgh Steelers had was a Najee Harris little out route to the end zone, and he scored a touchdown on it. So they don't pay too much attention to the running backs when they like run these little routes. What's up?
Yeah. Something interesting I saw, somebody posted the top 5 teams that run zone coverage on defense, and Buccaneers were like top 3. And a lot of times what happens when defenses run zone coverage is that you see more targets spread out to the tight end and to the running back. So it's interesting that, you know, the running backs that are getting targeted out of the backfield are doing well against Tampa Bay. So
that kind of makes sense too, because in the first 2-3 weeks of the season, everybody was playing zone on the Chiefs, which is maybe why we saw Clyde like go nuclear. And then these last couple of weeks, they've been playing a lot of man. So maybe that's why the running backs have like died down. So that's interesting. Way to connect the puzzle pieces there, honestly. So yeah, CMC high-end RB1 this week. I have him as my running back 4 this week. So he's a top 5 play. And then AJ Dillon, he's been a disappointment so far. We finally had an uptick in the snap percentage from last week. It was getting really bleak for a second there. He hit like sub 35%. And the passing work was like finally there a little bit last week, but to me, sort of kind of become TD dependent. Like, yeah, we thought as an RB2, like when you draft him or like that RB3 in the beginning of the season, we kind of like knew for him to have these crazy games, he would have to score touchdowns. But in week 1, he didn't. In week 1, he was just super, super efficient with his touches. He got like 20 touches in week 1. So we thought maybe that would happen throughout the season. And it just really hasn't been that. He's been providing a floor of like 8 to 9 points. And then like with that touchdown, if he gets one, it can boost him into that like solid RB2 range. But it's been kind of like a disappointment so far. And honestly, to me, it's because the Packers, like, they're really struggling to, like, find their identity, dude. Like, I said it 2 weeks ago on the podcast. They need to run the ball a lot. They need to give both these running backs, like, at least 18 touches a game to keep themselves in it, because when they just play, like, hero ball and Aaron Rodgers has to make magic and he's not really working with anything crazy like a Devontae Adams who's guaranteed open, like, every route, you're going to lose football games, and it's showing them right now. And this is a week for them. They're trying to finally avoid like a 3-game losing streak. So it's a really big game for them. I hope they get AJ Dillon more involved, but to me, he's really just a low-end flex play until Green Bay really figures it out there. And then on the running back side of things for Kyle, we got Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. There's really not much to say about these two. They're just absolute monsters. Nick Chubb, I was watching an Instagram video the other day, and it's these podcasters. I don't know their names. I wish I did to give them a quick shout out, but they do like a lot of comparisons. Like, all right, who do you think is the best running back right now? Are you taking Nick Chubb or Saquon Barkley or Jonathan Taylor and stuff? And most of them, they just had that consensus of them taking Nick Chubb. So pound for pound right now, he's looking like the best running back in the league. I think it's going to be a really solid game versus Baltimore. It's a divisional game, but the matchup is there for him, and the volume is there. He gets so many touches a game. Last week, we finally saw a decline because New England kind of like popped off and went crazy, so only had 12 touches, and Reem was more involved. But I think with Baltimore struggling in the second half, I think it's just going to be a really sweaty divisional game. So I think it's a prime spot for Nick Chubb to really get those 20 touches a game again and probably score 1 or 2 touchdowns. So Cal just has a stud in that. And then Derrick Henry, I know he plays the Colts this week. He's finally doing things. I know we were hating on him a lot in the beginning of the season, but Tennessee finally was able to figure stuff out and realize like, all right, we need to give this guy the ball like 22 plus times a game for us to have a chance, especially with not having a receiver there. So I like the matchup this week. Indy, they've been banged up at D-line. Ray, are any of them at full strength again, or is Buckner back? Like, how's it looking over there in Indy?
Well, Shaq is limited. Actually, he didn't practice yesterday, so I mean, we're still pretty unhealthy. I think D-Buck is gonna play, so we're definitely rounding out. I think we should be pretty good to go. But in general, I mean, Derrick Henry does pretty well against us, and I mean, he's gonna get his 2025.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
he usually has a pretty good history versus the Colts, so I expect him to do well. Hold on real quick, my laptop. Let me plug in my charger. Yeah, so I expect Derrick Henry to do really good. So in this case, like I'm gonna have to give the advantage to Kyle. It's pretty obvious. Just off of name value alone. Daniel really took a hit losing Fournette. I know Zvi's going to snicker at that one because I thought that Daniel won that trade in the beginning. But right now, like it's proving I'm 100% wrong. Like I have no problem saying that I've been wrong so far. So losing Fournette really hurts him right now. So I got to give Kyle the advantage in the running back department there. And then moving on to the wide receiver side of things, Daniel's got Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, and Rondale Moore. Tyreek Hill, he really wasn't lying when he said if that reporter was his quarterback, he would have no problems getting it done. He had a crazy game. He had 15 targets last week. He went for 12 for 177. He's a clear alpha wide receiver in this offense, regardless of who's under center. It could be Teddy, it could be Skyler, it could be Tua. He is just a monster, and he's like a game breaker, and his ceiling is so high, and like it's a shame we never like see a perfect game because there's so many PI calls that are constantly called on him. Imagine if there was just 1 week where there was no like he broke the PI or something and just had it. He could break like 60 points in like a fantasy game, I swear. He's just like a monster, and he it's just all the chips aligned for the Dolphins to do really well this week. Tua being back, Pittsburgh having a really bad matchup in the secondary. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of double coverages on him. I don't know. Supposedly, like Waddle should play, but there's been like some question marks. We'll see what happens if he actually does. If he doesn't play, it'll be a little bit tougher for a week. But he's just in a prime spot to have a nuclear game with a bottom of the barrel stinky secondary. I had him as my wide receiver 2 this week. Obviously, it's a little biased because Kupp and Diggs are on bye, so it's like hard to not rank him like super high. But I have him as my wide receiver 2 and expect to pop off in this Sunday night extravaganza. And then Keenan Allen, his wide receiver 2. Is he finally back? Has Father Time caught up to us? Was Coran's right with the analytics preseason that I know Ray was very heated about? So far, it's proven right. He's Uncle Drew right now. He's been an old man. But like I said in the injury report, I'm expecting him to be like maybe like 85%. I always like temper expectations off of hamstring injuries, because all it takes is one little move and you're really hurt again and you're out for the rest of the game. I literally just saw it on Twitter before the podcast. Jahan Dotson was running amazing routes all practice, and then they got him on video on one route. He tweaked his hamstring. He did that like little hop. So like now he's probably sidelined for another week. I don't know. So hamstring injuries are just really, really sketchy. But he's in a prime position to have a really good, perfect bounce back because of the matchup this week. It's a very shreddable secondary there in Seattle. So I'm expecting a big game from Herbert this week. So that could boost Keenan's production this week. I'm just hesitant to really rank him super high. I have him as my wide receiver 20 this week. So he's still a top 20 play for me. I'm just hesitant to put him any higher just because I'm a little cautious with the injury. But I have him as a really good play this week, wide receiver 2. So Daniel's finally starting to get maybe see those dividends of the trade that he did with Zvi. And then Rondale Moore as his wide receiver 3. Really sneaky play. With Hollywood out, that obviously boosts him. But even with Hollywood in there, he was in on 90% of all snaps. Coming into the season, we knew he was dealing with an injury right away, and tons of fantasy people were like, you should pick him up because once he's healthy, like he's going to be really involved in this offense. And like I said, he was in on 90% of the snaps. Even with Hollywood in the game, it'll be interesting to see how it works with D-Hop coming back. I'm always a big believer of the more weapons you have on the field, the better it is for all receivers. D-Hop, he's instantly going to have like gravity towards him. He's going to see a lot of Marshawn Lattimore. Like the gravity's just going to suck that way. So I think he's a really sneaky, like pretty good spot this week. He could, I'm not going to go like as far as to say he's going to have 100 yards, but I definitely think he could be in like 70 to 85 yard range and definitely score a touchdown this week. So to me, he's a wide receiver 3 with some upside. It's going to be interesting. I was trying to get Rondale Moore from Daniel like a week ago. Just to have like a backup in case any freak shit happened to Hollywood, and then it happened, which is crazy. But yeah, so Rondale Moore he's a good play this week. And then going over to Kyle's side of the ball, we've got Christian Kirk, DK Metcalf, and Mike Evans. Surprisingly, all of these guys had busts last week, which was the reasoning behind your explanation for Kyle scoring sub 90 or whatever you said. Christian Kirk, it's kind of disappointing. He's really tempered off in the last 3 weeks from what we saw him as. And he's just not carrying out that same efficiency that we saw in the beginning of the season. And I mentioned it in the last episode. In Jacksonville, it's kind of become like a carousel of like which wide receiver is going to have the pop-off game. And to me, it just has a lot to do with Trevor Lawrence. He's never, even in college, he was never a guy to like favor one receiver at all times. And I feel like from college to NFL, like that's one of those things that sticks with quarterbacks, where if you're not a quarterback who focuses on one guy a lot, then maybe it's not going to happen in college. Same thing happened like with Matt Stafford, with Cal Megatron and stuff like that. And then we see him go to the Rams and then he's just like a Cooper Cup stand, you know? So it's just, I don't know. It's just crazy to see the production has dropped off a little bit, but he's still the wide receiver one, like no disrespect to him. He's the most talented guy there. However, Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, they're going to continue to be like thorns in his side because they're not bad wide receivers. Like they can get it done. I really like Zay Jones. He's a pretty solid wide receiver. And they're going to eat into his target share like constantly throughout every game. But there usually should be in a positive passing game script, and he gets separation. Like all his stats say that he's a really good receiver. So to me, he's a wide receiver too, with that constant wide receiver upside. And it's a surprisingly decent, tough matchup versus the Giants. So like I said, wide receiver 2 with some wide receiver 1 upside. I have him as a top 15 player. I have him as well, wide receiver 14 this week. So should be solid. And then DK Metcalf, he had a slumper game last week. Like I said 3 weeks ago or something like that, when you're going against cornerback Byron Murphy, dude, he's going to shut you down. He's continued to shut down wide receiver ones throughout the entire season. He's just a stud at the cornerback position, so salute to you, my friend. But I'm not worried. The targets have been there. I really love Seattle's offense for fantasy. Geno Smith has proven he's gonna keep you in any game. Vegas is finally gonna catch on one of these days to not make him like a plus 200 favorite in some of these games, but for now they're going to be playing a lot of catch up because their secondary and their run defense is just really, really putrid. So I have him as a very high end wide receiver this week, and I expect it to be a high scoring game in the shootout versus the Chargers. So he's a locked in top 10 play for me this week. So he's going to be really good for Kyle. And then Mike Evans. Like I said earlier in the recap of just like NFL takeaways, it was just an overall awful game for Tampa Bay. So I'm expecting there to be some regression for him to be really, really good. Like we said, the survivor picks were busted up. But I think Big Mike's in a prime position to have a monster bounce back game versus a super susceptible Carolina secondary. Carolina's just, I don't know, man. Sometimes they keep you in the game, sometimes they don't. So it's really hard to see. I'm not going to say like they're a banger matchup, but they're just very shaky. Like you don't know what you're going to get from them week in and week out. So I think it's a benefit. I always like when my fantasy players have really bad weeks, because it's like, all right, they're not going to have this same awful week next week. And Mike Evans and DK Metcalf both had really, really bad weeks. So I think they're in positions matchup-wise and just health-wise of the team. I think they're in prime positions to give a solid bounce back. So in this one, I think it's going to just be a pattern where I'm going to give the advantage to Kyle every single week in the wide receiver department. The only time I would say it's tough is when he plays Ukraine's, because to me, you guys have like the best wide receiver core in the league. So in that one, I'm going to give the advantage to Kyle. And then we got a tight end battle. We got Zach Ertz and then David Njoku. Zach Ertz right now is a must-start tight end 1. He's been proving insane value from where we drafted him on ADP-wise. He's going in like the 10th, 11th round. So salute to everybody who drafted him. He's been a really good stud last week. 10 targets in back-to-back games. This was something interesting that I wrote down. When you're a safety blanket in a shaky offense that has no downfield threat and you're a tight end, you're really going to thrive. So as we see in Carolina, Hollywood, I'm like, don't get me wrong, he can get bombs, but the way that Arizona's been using him, they're not really using him as that take off the top, like defense wise. Like he's a lot of like 15, 20-yard routes for Kyler because the O-line's been banged up. There's been a couple routes where he gets those big air yard plays, but they haven't used him as like what they should, like what a deep air wide receiver is. And then I correlated that with the Rams. The Rams are absolutely struggling to get the ball down the field. When Van Jefferson comes back, if anybody's desperate in your 12-man or a 3 wide receiver man league, Van Jefferson could be a sneaky scoop. Once they get him back, it'll benefit. But they're really missing Odell. We thought A-Rob was going to be that guy. Cooper Kupp can only do so much, working in the middle of the field. So when you have like Higbee, he's been going off because there's no receivers to take the top off. And then you have Zach Ertz on Arizona, where they haven't had a receiver really be able to take the top off. These tight ends are going to flourish. So I think he's going to be a really solid play this week. Keith's going out only helps the target share. Keith's had like an insane target share. So Zach Ertz, I have him as my tight end 3 this week. He's in a really bangers matchup. And then David Njoku, he continues to be like a solid tight end in like this wasteland of death is what I call it, of tight ends. He's got back-to-back weeks of 6 targets, and he hasn't hit under 5 targets since week 1. So if you're in a tight end struggling position, that's all you can really ask for. Like if I'm getting 5-6 targets a game, I'm just hoping one of those is in the red zone. The QB's just middies, man. Like Briskett's not that guy, so he's just not gonna do crazy things. So the ceiling is low unless he gets a tutty. So in this one, I'm finally gonna give an advantage to Dan in the tight end department. And then going over to the flex side of things, we've got Allen Lazard versus George Pickens. Allen Lazard, he continues to be Rodgers' favorite target in the offense. 8 and 9 targets back-to-back weeks. Has a great matchup in what I believe hopefully to be a bounce back for Green Bay. I'm saying hopefully because I've had them in like 2 parlays in the last 2 weeks and they've absolutely mucked me. They are officially on my do not gamble list, Green Bay. I will never bet on you guys again until you guys prove me wrong. I know, Ray, you're definitely in the same boat, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm off that Green Bay pack energy.
Yeah, they've been costing me a little bag, so I'm off of them. But Allen Lazard, fantasy wise, he's I think he's gonna be a solid start again this week. He's a really good flex option. That was one part of the trade with Zvi that I think really helped Daniel, was getting Lazard. And I think Rodgers might be in his little Birkin this week. Hopefully, I'm gonna say hopefully with anything Packers wise, but I think Rodgers is gonna be in a decent spot here. And then on Kyle's side of the flex, we've got George Pickens. He's really just a boomer bust wide receiver 3 right now. Because of the QB carousel, we don't know who's going to be starting. We know when Pickett has him, he's really, really good with targeting the ball. Pickett is one of those quarterbacks to where when you're in a college like Pitt, where you're not like a crazy college football team, they had one stud receiver for like 3 years, and that was Pickett, who was constantly throwing him the ball. And then we see it translate over to the NFL, where he has Pickens, he's his number one guy. So if he's under center, I think his targets go up a lot. And he's been averaging 7 targets the last 4 weeks, so that's pretty good. There's just a lot of mouths to feed there with Deontay Johnson. Chase Claypool had a really big game last week, and then Pat Freiermuth being back. I know Pickett likes him as well. So he's just a wide receiver 3 with a low floor because their offense is just really anemic. But he's got decent upside this week versus Miami. Their secondary has been really banged up. It'll be interesting to see how we play our coverages on him, because I know we're not really afraid. I think Deontay's going to have a really good game versus us, but it'll be interesting to see. So in this one, I'm going to give the advantage to Dan just because the shakiness of Pickens. But overall, as you guys can see, I've given the advantage to Kyle in every aspect besides the tight end and the flex. So in this matchup, I'm going to have to give King Henry's Chubb the dub in this one.
Yeah, I think I am also going to go ahead and give King Henry's Chubb the dub. I said this when the trade happened. AJ Dillon is just such a massive step down at the RB2 position from Leonard Fournette. I know I got some hate for that because of the Justin Herbert, addition, but Herbert hasn't proved his value so far, and of course, Keenan Allen hasn't even been healthy. He's got to prove it to me this week. before I say he's going to get any value, he's going to be worth anything. Obviously, he's Herbert's favorite target when he plays, but coming off those hamstrings, he might be limited. He might be rusty. We'll see. Maybe he's on a snap count. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and give Kyle the dub there. I'm agreeing with you.
And then I'm also going to go ahead and triple down on that and go ahead with King Henry's Chubb. Pause. And reason being, those running backs, as Rosie was alluding to, right? I mean, Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. Look, those are two guys. I know we're full PPR this year. It's probably two studs that we were like, hey, damn, they're just those two backs that aren't going to get those catches every week. But I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter because with those two guys, it's death, taxes, and a long run's going to go ahead and pop off, or they're going to
for sure.
Leading, right? And besides that, look, Christian McCaffrey, I know Creighton's a big fan, right? He's proven me wrong. Not that there really was anything that he had to prove. He's a guy, but he's been really consistent. And as you were alluding to with the receptions versus Tampa Bay, I think that's going to fall into his favor. And with A.J. Dillon, I think it's actually a little bounce back spot. I think he's locked to score at least one touchdown. And with Dan in general, he has a lot of players with high upside. But I think, just with the comfortability and the safety at the running back position, Kyle definitely has to go ahead and take the edge here. But do not be surprised if Dan goes ahead and gets a 40 from Herbert, a 30 from CMC, a 30 from Tyreek Hill, and if Keenan Allen is healthy, if Keenan Allen goes ahead and gets 15 to 20 points, put it this way, if Keenan Allen can score 15 to 20 points, Dan will win this game.
Okay, that's interesting. This is a huge game. Daniel's 2-4 with a pretty decent team. So, if he goes to 2-5, it's a really big advantage for the league there. And honestly, to me, Kyle's like a lock for playoffs just because his team is going to be really consistent every week. So it'll be crazy to see what happens there. You guys can take over the next matchup.
Go ahead, Grants.
All right, I'm going to do the next matchup, and this is a good one in Mr. Sheidy Shide and Mr. Max Brown. This is an interesting matchup. Again, the bye weeks are hitting hard. We're seeing Jalen Hurts out this week, which is a really, really big hit for side. And of course, that means that this game is going to be an absolute battle of the Titan QBs, just monsters at the QB position. We got Trevor Lawrence and Jimmy Garoppolo duking it out. We know they're going to get 40, 50 points. No, I'm just playing. These guys they're going to maybe get you 20, Trevor Lawrence is in a tougher matchup versus the 5-1 Giants. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to have to throw the ball with playing against Kansas City, but man, Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback one is just tough, man. He's never been known to be a fantasy quarterback type of guy. So if I had to give somebody I would say that they're even, but I'll just give Trevor Lawrence that little greater than sign just because he does have slight upside. And I do think this is a slight bounce back week for the Jaguars offense overall. They've been a little bit stagnant. I think they're going to get it going. But I think it's relatively even there. And the positional matchups, it's interesting. It's a flip situation for them. So Brown's got the great RB matchups. And then Side's got the great wide receiver matchups. And of course, they have the battle of the Bengals wide receivers going up against each other. So will Najee finally pop out? I don't know. He's in a good matchup versus Miami. We always see running backs go off against Miami. Even last week, Dalvin was just locked up the whole game. And then when we were out of it, of course, 60-yard bomb to the crib. I think it'll be different with Tua at quarterback just because we'll be able to push the offense and put some more pressure on the Steelers in general. But I don't know. Maybe he gets scripted out. We haven't seen Najee be the PPR guy we all thought he was going to be as much as we would have liked him to be when Ben was quarterback. So will he pop out? Who knows? But mark my words, Ken Walker is going absolutely nuke this week, and I'll allude to that a little bit more in later part of the episode. But Ken Walker is in a super duper mega smash spot. I love him this week. And Clyde Edwards, like we said, tough sledding, man. And I think this week he's going to have tough sledding again, going up against San Francisco. Their stout defensive line is going to really put pressure on him. Maybe we see him catch some balls out of the backfield because he's not seeing much pressure between the tackles. But I do not like this spot from Clyde. And then Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has been definitely a little bit more of a bust. He's on the very back end of the RB1. I think he's ranked RB12 right now in fantasy points per game. He's going to be involved. He's going to get his, but he hasn't had those popper games like everybody wanted him to. And this matchup versus Atlanta, albeit theoretically a solid matchup, is actually a little bit tougher in terms of fantasy points per game. Atlanta doesn't really give up much points to the running back position. So I definitely am giving the boost to Max Brown on the running back side. But then we're going to flip over to the wide receiver side, where Side just has bangers all around. He's got Jamar Chase versus a very porous Atlanta secondary. Of course, they have AJ Terrell, but when you're going up against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, there's going to be a lot of floating there. I don't see it being as a shadow coverage like there was some shadow coverage in the beginning of the year on Jamar Chase, versus their matchups, and T was seeing some success, and obviously Boyd was also seeing success outside of T. Higgins. But last week we saw Jamar Chase go stupid nuclear. So I think Jamar Chase is gonna go off again. Of course, T. Higgins, I think he's gonna be going off again as well. He came back from the injury last week. He didn't do amazingly, but he did all right. And now I think he's back up to speed. He's healthy. Doesn't even have a questionable designation. So if I were really to do it, I'm gonna give Jamar the little slight edge, just because I don't want to be too disrespectful as Jamar Chase. But I really think that him and T. Higgins could see very, very even value in this game, especially with that AJ Terrell matchup. And then we'll move on to Tyler Lockett. Of course, Tyler Lockett, he's been a stud. Earlier in the season, we were talking about how Tyler Lockett wasn't playable because of just some Geno Smith stuff. He was having some issues after that week one where he blasted off, but that offense is looking like it's very, very good. Both him and Metcalf can get it going, and this is the matchup where I think they can definitely get it popping. Tyler Lockett's going to see a good game. If he's questionable, he's got the injury, but I think he's going to do all right. And on the other side, it's Jacoby Myers for Brown. Jacoby Myers is definitely in a tougher position in terms of fantasy points per game to the wide receiver in Chicago. Jacoby Myers is a stud. He has seen a ton of volume, especially with Bailey Zappi going in. If Mac Jones comes back, I know Mac Jones loved him last year. He loved him at the beginning of the season as well. So I think Jacoby Myers is going to get his, but I think that the matchup just plays so much into Tyler Lockett's favor. And then we'll move on to the wide receiver 3, which is Pittman versus Drake London. Listen, I'm a big Drake London stan, but I am also an even bigger Michael Pittman stan. And this week up against Tennessee, who just is abysmal versus the wide receiver, Pittman is going to have a nuclear game. And Drake London is going up against Cincinnati, who has a really, really strong secondary. Obviously, they have Bates in the back there and a couple other strong cornerbacks. So I'm definitely going to have to give the edge to Michael Pittman. I think Drake London, being the guy he is, and being having the target share he does have, it's been a little bit tougher for him the past couple weeks. He hasn't seen as much snap share percentage, but Atlanta's offense is sneaky strong, and they definitely get it going. Obviously, they beat the 49ers last week handedly. So I think in a matchup where we're going to see more points from the Cincy side, I think Drake London will get his. But I'm going to give I'm definitely going to give the benefit of the doubt and say Pittman's going to do better than him in this matchup. And then we have the God himself in Travis Kelce versus Kyle Pitts. Listen, Kyle Pitts is in a good matchup, fantasy points per game wise, with tight end. He got his first touchdown of the year last week. And everybody was popping out. Kyle Pitts is back. Kyle Pitts is back. But he only had 3 targets, 57% snap share. He's just being underutilized, and you're going up against the God and Travis Kelce. It doesn't matter the matchup, man. Like, Travis Kelce's going to put up double his points, if not triple his points. So I have to give the matchup to Travis Kelce and Brown there. And then it's interesting. Claypool versus Breece Hall in the flex. Normally I would say Breece Hall is going to blow Claypool out of the water, but in a matchup where Deontay Johnson is going to see a lot of Xavier Howard, we may see some Claypool pop out in this game. And we know we know the Dolphins are going to put up a ton of points with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle against that trash secondary in Pittsburgh. So they're going to have to throw the ball more. Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, whoever it is, I don't know. When at the beginning of the season, Mitchell Trubisky was throwing the ball to Claypool a little bit more. He saw 6 targets pretty much in every game through the first few weeks of the season. And Breece Hall kind of has a tough matchup in Denver. He definitely is is somebody who's going to see most of the carries. Obviously, like Rosie said, he's not going to get a lot of the goal line work because they like to use Michael Carter there. But in a tough matchup with a tough defensive line in Denver, I think that we may see Breece Hall cool off a little bit from what he has done in these past few weeks. And I think it may be a slight bust. I don't want to call him a super bust, but I definitely want to say he's not going to do as well as he has. So I'm not going to straight up say that Claypool has a full super big advantage over Breece, but I think I'm going to give the slight advantage to Claypool just based on the matchups alone. And so I personally think that there is a lot of upside in Seidenberg's team, but I think that with T. Higgins, Ken Walker, Kelsey, he has that potential, like you said, with Dan's team to just see super pops, like just mega pops. And I think that especially with this Ken Walker week, that Brown is going to take a W with some pops versus those those consistent 10, 15 pointers across the board. So I'm going to give the dub to Brown here.
Ray, what do you think?
I know you guys were waiting for a review on this matchup, right? As I'm sure a lot of our we got Scheidenberg and Max. I mean, pretty close matchup per projections.
Yeah.
Really, the things that pop out to me here. I mean, again, I know I started off the episodes talking about this team, which is the Bengals. And with Seidenberg having Joe Mixon, right? I know, Rosie, you and I have a little side bet with him and another player, and also Jamar Chase, my favorite player. Jamar's actually going to see a lot of who he saw in the national championship game, I believe, in AJ Terrell, right? And in that game, Jamar went absolute nuke. So I think they're definitely going to have, they're youngins. They're going to be at the line talking some shit. He's
for sure going to try to get his lick back.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
It's definitely it's one of those matchups where I'm definitely gonna say, okay, let me go ahead and fixate my vision over here. I want to see what's going on. Kind of like a Josh Norman and OBJ type of thing. You know what I'm saying? And then I mean overall, right? I'm gonna give the edge to my number one op, Scheidenberg, mainly just because I think he has a lot more upside and safety. I personally think Lockett, he isn't my mentor of the week, but he is an honorable mention. I'll give you guys a little sneak peek because I think that game's going to be really high scoring. He'll be a dope play this week. Michael Pittman, stud.
Yeah, for sure.
What can I say? And then Trans actually brought up a really good point with Chase Claypool. I believe he actually scored a touchdown last week, so pretty decent week. And then he's also probably not going to see too much of Xavier Howard. So, yeah, I think I'm going to give it to Scheidenberg just because, again, piggybacking on what Cran said, Breece Hall, I, as an owner in other leagues, I'm really, really, really afraid of a down week. Because Breece Hall, his talent can definitely outwork a lot of situations, if not most. But I think this is the week where we'll see if the Jets are for real or not. Even though the Broncos aren't that good, it's a defense that can test any offense in the league.
Honestly, defensively, Broncos has like the best in the league on God.
Exactly.
Like, their defense is literally incredible. They shut down everybody. Like, they deserve better, man. That offense they do them so bad. They do them dirty.
I wonder how it goes in practice. Must be crazy.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Chris, you picked Max?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on here. Honestly, for me, the where I picked the hairs from is that, to me, the quarterback, they're both really bad this week, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be forced into a role where he's going to have to chuck it a lot. So I think that's a really, really big advantage for Brown there. And then I had a question for you guys. Would you guys start Clyde or would you start Demont if you're in Seidy's position?
I'm definitely starting Clyde. I know, listen, Demont, that New England front is tough, man. And if I'm going to err on the side of two bad matchups, it's going to be the one with the guy who has Patrick Mahomes as quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So
and also Khalil Herbert, he actually had a nice little scamper, and I mean, I actually have been paying attention to that offense a lot because of the backfield and other leagues and whatnot. And slowly but surely, I mean, stat by stat, it's looking like Khalil Herbert really just has a little bit of an edge, whether it's explosivity, whether it's long runs, whether it's missed tackles. I mean, it's just looking like I love Demont. I know Kranz also does. He's a great player, but I think it's just, again, when you got God at quarterback next to you, right, no matter what the situation is, you're going to have more opportunities and more efficient and open opportunities in general.
Ray says that he's been paying attention to them a lot, but it's because we be fading them in them teasers, man. Come on, man. So I'm honestly gonna have to pick Max in this one. Chase Claypool did get it going in like that last drive of the game. Tampa Bay had like 3 third and like 15s to get him off the field so that Brady can tie the game or win it. And Chase Claypool had like every third down conversion there. So he might be able to get it going versus us, but I'm for sure going to side with Max on this one. And then last matchup of the week, we'll throw it over to you, Ray.
Perfect. So the last matchup of the week, and this actually, if this was Fox right at 4 p.m., this would actually be my America's game of the week because we got a newly revamped SOS Teflon, right, from the homeboy Leor's V, the chatter, right, versus the cheater. You see that? The chatter versus the cheater. You know what I mean? We got Vega in here, Mamba for life, right? Look, starting off with quarterback, it's an elite level matchup on both sides. I know with Joe Burrow, again, I've been talking about the Bengals since the beginning of the pod. He's been hot. He's QB5 on the season. He's starting to round out to the QB that everybody's drafted him out to be, maybe even better, just because I think that they have something to prove with that slow stretch, and I still think that they do. They're on a 2-game win streak now, and they're coming off of a really, really, really close win last week in New Orleans. ATO's number 8 in fantasy points given to the QB. So again, elite tier matchup. Offense has been heating up. And I think somebody who has even more so than Joe Burrow and everybody else on that team to go ahead and prove is Jamar Chase. You kind of see with that game-winning touchdown he had, the 55-yard bomb. He didn't even really need it to be perfectly placed. He's going to get his yak. You know what I mean? And I think that just with the playmakers in general that Joe Burrow has, he's definitely going to go ahead and get the edge there with Lamar. Look, Cleveland's number 18 versus the QBs. Look, it's a decently tough matchup because we know they have a lot of stars on that team. The Ravens in general have been a little bit stagnant. We really don't know what's going on there. Look, the past 3 games, Lamar has 15, 16, and 18 points. Kranz, I know you have a little something against the nerf QBs, but this is kind of what I was alluding to before. Yeah, that 155 might come through, but for someone like Lamar, I honestly at this point I would easily give the advantage to Joe Burrow, not only because of matchup, but also because of situation. You got Bateman down, now you got Mark who's potentially out, and you got JK. I'm not even sure if he practiced today. I don't think he did. So things are looking pretty bleak over there, and I think Lamar has a hip issue, which I don't think is going to be too much, but at the end of the day, Lamar is a running quarterback, so maybe it might refrain him from taking certain opportunities and not, you know what I mean?
I was literally about to say, you're a brave man. Honestly, if I'm going against like a rushing QB, it's so hard for me to give the advantage to anybody else.
Exactly.
Like in the QB battle. So it's going to be close, like you said, with the matchup thing.
And with Lamar having a hip issue, when you're running away from goddamn Myles Garrett all day, I think things are going to get pretty tough. And I think the weather over there is going to be a little icky, right? Now at the running back position, for V, we have Alvin Kamara, right, who I love. And then he also has Leonard Fournette versus on Vegas side. He has Saquon Barkley and Eno Benjamin. I actually just got the news not too long ago. I didn't want to interrupt. James Conner actually is officially out. So, Eno's definitely going to be the RB1 there, at least for the night. Now, starting with Alvin Kamara, he's coming off 2 great games, 25 and 18 points. He's starting to be the guy, again, that everybody drafted him out to be AK-41, right? Now, Arizona, number 22 in fantasy points versus running backs. On paper, right, all the stats, I'm a stat guy, Kranz. It's a bad matchup, right? But I think that with MT being gone, the Saints, I wouldn't want to say needing a dub, but them still being the competitive team they're always going to be, they're going to actually try to win the game. They're not going to tank, and that's going to happen if either he or Chris Olave go ahead and do their thing. Opportunity is king, as we all know, when it comes to fantasy, right? And then Leonard Fournette, right? Carolina, they're number 6 in fantasy points given to the RB, so elite tier matchup, and Carolina's absolutely dog water right now. They got PJ Walker, and even if their defense on paper, right, we know football a little bit more than just a fantasy perspective, they're decent, but when your offense cannot move the ball, it's kind of just common sense. Okay, if you're going 3 and out, your defense is going to be on the damn field every single time and for very long stretches of time, right? Especially against a team in the Bucs who, it's sad to say, right? Tom Brady's starting to maybe see like we're seeing a little bit of father time catch up to him, and they really, really, really lean on Leonard Fournette. It's kind of like instead of just running the ball, sometimes they run a play. Okay, Leonard Fournette runs 5 yards, turns around, and catches the ball just to go ahead and get another 5-7 yards. So I think it's going to be a really great situation for him. He's just a PPR monster. I never thought we would see Leonard Fournette get to this level, right? It's kind of like a mini CMC type of ordeal. He's going to go ahead and get 5 to 8 catches every damn game, and he has a receiving touchdown in the past 3 games straight. So elite tier matchup there. For Vega, Saquon Barkley, I believe he's running back 1, right? Or is he number 2 behind Chubb?
He's 2 behind Eki, my guy.
Behind Eki. Oh wow. Now with Saquon Barkley, I mean he has been him. I mean, look, Jacksonville, number 6 in fantasy points given a running back, so elite tier matchup. It's kind of enough said type of thing. I mean, you're going to start Saquon each and every single week, but especially in a week like this where you have a great matchup. The Jags just allowed my boy on the Colts, Deion Jackson, a 3rd string running back, to go absolutely nuke a top 3 running back score for week 6. So, I mean, look, if I am Shvi, I know he and Shvi and Vega are really, really close, right? They roomed together in college. He's an op this week because I know Shvi also doesn't like the Giants too much. I know the Finns and the Giants have a little rivalry, right? At least within the chat. I'd be scared of Saquon Barkley going for a 40 or 50 spot because, look, Saquon Barkley literally stopped a couple of feet before the end zone last week. He could have had a 20 spot easily. Like, that guy has just got it going on. Not only is he efficient, but he's also, just really playing hard every play. He's playing for his team. It looks like something magical is happening over there in New York, right? And then Benjamin for Vega. As I just told you guys a couple minutes ago, James Conner was ruled out. Now with the thing is with him, right? Last week he did get the opportunity. I believe he had an 80+% snap share, so he did have a workhorse role, but he didn't do too much. 9 points is definitely something Vega can deal with, especially with the potential upside of guys like a Saquon or a Lamar. But with him having RB1 workhorse type of snap percentage, I definitely think tonight, in a tough matchup versus New Orleans, as we already know, right, they're number 24 in points given to running backs. Their line is nasty every single year, and I mean, we love the idea of the Cardinals going crazy. I know we're really invested in them in a whole bunch of leagues, but in general, the Cardinals have looked a little bit stagnant themselves. So I don't know if Benjamin is really too much of a high upside play. So for the running backs, I'm definitely going to go ahead and give the advantage to SOS Teflon. Now, wide receivers is pretty interesting because there's not too much star power, right? There's a little bit. I know Leor does get D-Hop back. He has the rookie sensation, Chris Olave, and he has Mike Williams, Crane's guy. And then on the other side, Vega has Amari Cooper, who's been honestly one of my biggest surprises of the year. That guy's like a lock for at least 14, 15 points every game. Probably going to score a tutty too. He has Jerry Jeudy, and then he also has Michael Gallup, right? Now, starting with V, I mean, Mike Williams, he has an elite tier matchup, at least in regards to the game script and the over-under. I believe the Seahawks and the Chargers do have the highest over-under of the week. On paper, I mean, Seattle's number 25 in fantasy points given to wide receivers, so on paper, it looks like it's kind of a murky type of matchup, but I think there's going to be points galore here. Keenan Allen is going to be back, but I'm with Rosie in the fact that the more talent on the field, the more efficient and better openings that another wide receiver is going to go ahead and have. I know when Keenan Allen is on the field, Mike Williams kind of has his up and down games, but I mean, even if Keenan Allen does play, I think he's going to be more of a decoy, especially with the hammy, right? It's very easy to go ahead and re-injure that. Chris Olave next for Shvi. Big guy for me. I think that guy is a stud. He's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but he's definitely one of the most skilled guys when he's out there. He seems to always be open every play. Arizona, again, really weird. I mean, on paper, they're number 27 in points given to wide receivers, so it's tough. But again, tonight, if the Saints have any chance of competing, in my opinion, it's going to have to go through either Alvin Kamara, who Shvi also has, or it's going to be through Chris Olave. So they're going to get theirs purely based off of talent and opportunity regardless. He actually does have an elite tier matchup versus rookie Marco Wilson. So it's a rookie on rookie type of matchup there. I think it's going to be pretty fun to watch. One I'm definitely going to be looking at on the side. But yeah, I think Chris Olave is definitely in store for a pretty decent game. And then D-Hop, he's back, right? I mean, I'm not sure if you guys watched his highlight video. I kind of got some chills, no corny shit. Really, I mean, it's D-Hop. It's Nuke. Right? He's Mr. Throw Up, close your eyes and go get him. He's going up against the Saints, who elite tier matchup, actually, number 7 fantasy points given to wide receivers. I don't think Marshawn is going to be playing tonight. The Bengals are pretty banged up. So, I mean, I think if D-Hop is D-Hop, if Kyler isn't, still thinking about double XP later on this weekend, I think that, D-Hop's definitely in store for a pretty good game. There's no Marquise, so the targets are definitely going to be there. I know they brought in Robbie Anderson, but what can he really do on being on the team a couple days? And yeah, he actually has an elite matchup actually in regards to what side of the field that he's usually on, D-Hop. Because Marshawn's going to be gone, he goes up against Bradley Roby. I believe he used to play for the Broncos, used to be a solid corner, but I mean, I just think in a night like tonight, it's going to kind of be, hey, Tyler's going to say, hey, D-Hop, go run some route, run whatever you want. I'm going to throw the ball to you. Just go up there and catch it, right? And then on the other side for Vega, a lot of people may think that his wide receivers look a little bit weak on paper, but Amari Cooper has an elite tier matchup versus Baltimore, who's number 5 in points given up to wide receivers. They are getting a little bit healthy, and the past couple games they have been playing a lot more, I want to say, hungry, right? I know he has a really tough matchup against Marlon Humphrey, right? Who's basically a lockdown corner. I know, of course, everything in regards to defense over there in Baltimore has been a little bit up and down. But really, in general, I mean, Amari Cooper's going to get his. He's a target monster. I think he had at least 12 targets the past 2 games. Actually, really annoying because I played Vega last week, and even though he smoked me, at a certain point it was close. And then I think you guys remember in the chat, I'm not sure if you do, Amari Cooper got like a last-second touchdown. So it's just that guy, because he's so talented and he has size, and Jacoby, quite frankly, has nobody else to actually throw the ball to, right, wide receiver-wise. I mean, Amari Cooper's in store for a good game. Jerry Jeudy, been up and down. I know he had one really nice catch for 30-40 yards last game. But really, I mean, it's Russell Wilson, and it's sad that I got to say it like that now. But, I mean, the sample size is here. The jig is up. Russell Wilson, we got to go ahead and see a 250, 300-yard and 2 TD game before we think you're still him. I mean, he has a pretty tough matchup against Marco Carter II, who's actually been pretty locked down in most of the matchups. I went back and looked. The Jets are number 20 in fantasy points given to wide receivers. They're playing pretty lights out right now. Granted, they have played some pretty weak competition, but again, I think Robert Saleh over there used to be a D coordinator over in San Fran. Now he's the head coach, right? The past couple years, I think they kind of just got something going, and it seems like the Jets are finally able to just go ahead and stay healthy there. So I think it's an okay play, but Jerry Jeudy isn't really too much for me. And then last but not least, Michael Gallup for the Dallas Cowgirls, right? It's actually a number 8 matchup, right? Detroit is in giving fantasy points to wide receivers, so elite tier matchup. And he's a big guy for me because in the years past when Dak Prescott is playing, now Michael Gallup actually is like 100 target, 1,000-yard, 8 to 10 touchdown type of guy if he actually stays on field and if Dak actually stays on field as well, right? So I mean, I think that he's gonna have a pretty good game. I mean, second highest over under of the week at 49, so there's gonna be points to go up there. We'll see what happens, but in general, I think in regards to the wide receivers, I'm definitely going to go ahead and have to give that also to Shevil. So it's not looking too great for Vegas so far, even though I know he is 6-0. He's Mr. Undefeated, right? But we all love it. At tight end, Shevil has Gerald Everett. Seattle, I know Rosie says this each and every single week. Shout out to you, my guy. I mean, Seattle is an absolute elite matchup for tight ends. Somebody goes off on them every single week. I know Gerald Everett did miss practice yesterday with an illness. I'm not sure if he practiced today, but he should be fine and good to go. No Keenan. Potentially, if Keenan does play, I definitely think that's going to be tough for him because the way that, you know, a slot receiver like Keenan and then, of course, a tight end like Gerald Everett works, right? Is they're going to work the middle of the field. And so I think that space is going to be occupied by one of them or mainly by the other when that time comes if they're both on the field. Then on the other side, we have, I mean, a former superstar. I would still say he is, but that guy just has to stay on the field. George Kittle for Vega. I mean, AC, pretty decent matchup versus Titans, number 13 in fantasy points given up. He's coming off of an 8-catch, 83-yard game, so he had a George Kittle-like game. And as we all know, if the Chiefs are the Chiefs and they don't go ahead and stink up the room a little bit like they did last week, Jimmy Garoppolo and those boys are going to have to go ahead and throw the ball. And for them to even compete, if it's a high-scoring game, George Kittle is going to have to go ahead and be involved, of course. And with George Kittle, I mean, I know he's kind of been up and down. He has his injury history, but here, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and give Vega the advantage based off name value, what we've actually seen happen, and just, you know, best possible scenario situation really is, right? And then at the flex position for Shevil, we have Deontay Johnson, one of my top ops. That guy has mucked and cucked me, for mad years. It's kind of crazy. So for Miami, they're actually a pretty decent matchup. Number 9 in fantasy points given to wide receivers. He has had pretty okay production, kind of a little botchy, kind of up and down here and there. I'm not sure. I think is it confirmed on who's going to be QB, whether it's going to be Mitch or Pickett?
We don't know yet.
Okay, so I think it's going to be pretty up and down. I'm not really sure if he's going to have a good game or not. And then, of course, he actually is going to have a pretty tough matchup against your guy, Javian Howard. So he's pretty fast in regards to his route running, right? I love Deontay Johnson from a talent standpoint, but really, I mean, it's Xavier Howard, right? So he's going to have a pretty tough time, and his QB situation isn't the best. And then on the other side, I mean, really, I mean, look, Vega 6-0, so I can't tell him he's wrong for anything he's doing. But Latavius Murray at the flex was a little bit questionable. I know he's kind of hanging on to him getting a lot more work than Melvin that last game. But as you guys know, as we all know, right, Hackett literally said Melvin is going to be the starter. So I'm not really sure how that's going to go ahead and work out for Vega. I'm pretty sure he's going to go ahead and switch out the last second. And then for kickers and defense, I mean, Graham Gano versus Ryan Suckup, I'm going to give the advantage to Vega. I'm there because of the offense and just the situation. And then, of course, last but not least, for defense, Patriots, right? They play the Bears, who have a really stagnant, anemic, annoying, nasty, disgusting offense, right? Number 3 in fantasy points given to defense. And so, I mean, the Patriots are going to be a smash play with how Bill knows how to attack their best players regardless. And then on the other side, we have the Cowboys, right, defense, who, I mean, we love them. Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, right? They're dogs over there in Dallas. They've been elite this year. Swift is back. Amon-Ra is back. The lines are coming off a bye, so it might be a high-scoring game. I know the over-under is one of the highest of the week, but we'll see what happens there. What do you guys think?
Yeah. You picked who? Vega to win?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to go ahead and pick my winner. That's on me. In general, looking at everything, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and give it to Zvi quite easily in regards to just the matchups. I know, Vega, again, is 6-0, but he has some pretty big buys. I'm pretty sure he has Cup gone. So, yeah, Zvi's definitely going to go ahead and take that dub. We can finally have no undefeateds in the league this week, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Zvi has some really good matchups across the board. I'm going to pick him. And yeah, I'll just keep it short and sweet. I think it's going to be Zvi, and Zvi be thinking like I have it out for him and shit. Bro, I need you to win as many games as possible. Like we need this league as balanced as possible. So like everybody can have a shot. Like it makes everything really sweaty and stuff. So I'm team Zvi to win out for the rest of the season if possible.
Yeah, I'm picking Zvi as well. D-Hop is going nuke because Kyler's going nuke. So I like to see that.
Yep. All right, so just a quick recap. All three of us have Ray beating me. And then Crans versus Sevilla. Ray, who did you pick to win that game?
I believe I picked, let me go ahead and check.
Yeah, I think you picked me.
Yeah, I picked Crans as well in that one. And then Zvi versus Vega, we're all three picking Zvi here. I know Vega likes that. He likes when we don't pick him. And then Seidenberg versus Brown. Me and you both picked Brown, and he chose his main op of the week, Seidy.
Yep.
And then Los Angeles versus Kyle. I picked Kyle to win, and I'm pretty sure both of you did as well.
Yep.
So with that being said, that is the recap, and we will see how that week goes in Schwep. And then with that being said, let's throw it over to my favorite segment of the podcast, the MENTA of the week. Did any of you guys want to start, or do you guys want me to go first?
Yeah, I already alluded to it in the previous section, so I'll go ahead and start. My MENTA of the week is Mr. Kenneth Walker. Listen, this game is a 50-point over-under. It started off as like a 53-point over-under, and it moved down. The 50-point over-under is unbelievable. Kenneth has had 58% and 69% snap share percentage the past 2 weeks, respectively. He's averaging 7.8 yards per carry and a touchdown with that workhorse role. He got 3 targets last week. And the Chargers, look, they ranked 22nd against the rush DVOA. And on the flip side, Seattle is 4th overall in offensive DVOA. They just pop off, right? So we're going to see him go crazy. We saw 32-year-old Latavius Murray average 4.4 yards per carry last week on the Chargers. And of course, the Chargers give up 30. They're the 31st in points per game, fantasy points per game to the running back. So that's another thing in his favor. And then this is something interesting. The Chargers are 4th in plays per game. They play really, really fast. Seattle is bottom tier in terms of plays per game, but they will have to keep up just like they did last week against Arizona. They were up 10% in plays per game compared to their season average. Arizona's like top 2 in plays per game, or maybe top 1 in plays per game. So they're going to have to play up and keep up to speed with the Chargers. So I think Kenneth Walker's going absolutely nuclear this week, and that's why he's my Menta of the week.
My dynasty team loves hearing that one.
Yeah.
I'll take the next Menta, and then I'll slide it over to you, Ray. So my Menta of the week this week is kind of outside of the box. It is not a running back or a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I actually went the tight end route here. So when I say Menta, obviously the score scaling might be a little different. Like for me, a Menta and tight end department is like 20 points maybe type shit like that. So my Menta of the week this week, even though he's got a little sick, he's got that Covey 190 upper decky right now, is going to be Gerald Everett. He's my absolute Menta of the week this week. Donald Palmer and Joshua Palmer both out with concussions. They're in the concussion protocol this week, so they're not likely to play. Donald Palmer, his injury happened in the fourth quarter. He banged his head really hard in the end zone. So they're both going to be out week 7. And then, like Ray said, man, Seattle ranks 32nd. They're dead last. When they're covering the tight end, especially fantasy points wise, they're dead last. They give the most points per game. And I in general, I'm just a huge believer in the Chargers this week. I think they're going to be in a really strong spot to bounce back after that really bad week in Denver there. And then just some little stats here. Weeks 1 through 4 with no Donald Parham because he was out. Gerald Everett was the tight end 5 in total points scored. He averaged 12.5 points per game, and he had a 70% snap rate. And he had a TD in 2 of those 4 games without him. So all of that grouped together with this crazy matchup versus Seattle, I think he's in a prime spot to go nuclear this week. And I think it's one of the reasons why I believe that Zvi is going to beat Vega this week. Gerald Everett, my absolute Menta of the week. I think he's going to be a smash. So yeah, that is my Menta of the week, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gerald Everett. Ray, on to you, buddy.
Menta of the week is going to come from the same team that I swore I never would bet on again, the Green Bay Pack, right? You know me, I love me some Pack. It's going to be Alan Lazard, Lizard King, right? First, actually, you guys can see here, I scribbled on my notes a little bit. At first, it was my rookie sensation guy, Romeo Dubes, but I kind of looked at the stats a little bit. Look, the past 5 games for Alan Lazard in regards to targets, it hasn't been too crazy, but he seems to be somewhat of a touchdown monster. Most recent game against the Jets, 4 for 76 in a TD. Against the Giants, 4 for 35 in a TD. Against New England, 6 for 116. Tampa Bay, 4 for 45 and a touchdown. And then his first game back from that injury a while back against Chicago, 2 for 13 and a touchdown. He has an elite matchup against Kendall Fuller, who's 5'11". I didn't realize this. Alan Lazard is fucking 6'5", right? So if they're in the red zone, if they have a third down conversion, it's gonna go to him. And I think this is the week. I'm a big believer, right? I'm a betting man, and I hate to go ahead and bet in regards to recover my losses. But if I were to bet on any team to kind of come back and stick it to a team because they're really upset, it's going to be on the Pack because I think Rodgers is going to be pretty damn upset. In general, I think that it's an elite matchup for all the wide receivers over there. But I think this is the week where Alan Lazard goes ahead and actually gets, 8 to 11, maybe 12 catches, 100 yards. And I'm thinking, honestly, he goes up there and he grabs two or three of them things.
Interesting. So yeah, you're expecting him to have a nuclear game. So yeah, those are our Mentas of the week. We'll definitely keep an eye out. So Kranz, you have a serious Kenneth Walker guy, Menta. You've got your guy who we just talked about, Lizard King, and then I have Gerald Everett. I did, like I said, outside of the box for me, tight end. It's a risky move. But with that being said, I know you just talked about being a betting man. Let's get into our betting segment. Unfortunately, Brown's Bets is under the weather this week, so he will not be joining us. So we'll have to do without his godlike mental, his locked-in clarity. So with that being said, let's do our locks of the week. So as this goes, we're each going to give you guys our 2 locks of the week on the board. We only do spreads here. We don't do any money lines for these locks. So yeah, did any of you guys want to start?
I'll go ahead and I'll start. I actually flip-flop. So I'll start with my number 2 lock, right? Again, I know I'm kind of doing a little switcheroo, right? I know the chat's probably going to kill me for this. Green Bay minus 4.5, right? Go ahead and buy a 0.5, right? If you're feeling a little funky, right? If you don't feel a little bit too sure. I know 4.5, 4 points is an ugly number to go ahead and bet on. But again, I look at this for Green Bay as a must-win game in regards to being able to compete for anything when the second half of the season comes up. Again, I think it's going to be angry discount double check. So I think they're really going to get it going. Elite matchup. I think everyone from my guy, Lizard King, Alan Lazard, to Romeo Dubs to I even told you guys about AJ Dillon. I think he's going to score. And then, of course, Aaron Jones, who's on my team. I hope he goes nuke. So, yeah, -4.5 for Green Bay. Definitely no doubt. Lock that in if you want to make money, right? Don't lose money with these other guys. And then, of course, my number one lock, this was my switch. It's a Thursday night football game. I know a lot of you guys might not see this. I'll try to get you guys this pick because this is actually one of my favorite bets across all sports for the whole week. I think D-Hop back, MT still being out for the Saints. I think Kyle is good. This is the week where they're going to say, okay, yeah, we got Hop back, even though we lost Queese, right? Hollywood Brown. So, yeah, man, Andy Dalton, 6-18 in prime time. I mean, it's stinky over there when it comes to the Red Rifle. And again, in general, I think this is really just going to be they're back at home. Arizona is, and that entire team is going to have something to prove because Cliff Kingsbury, when he first came into the league, they were supposed to be the spread offense who was lit, which they have been a little bit this year. Complete opposite. I think this is the game where they get back to it.
Yes, sir. Those are some pretty solid picks. We'll see what's popping with the Thursday night game. It's going to be interesting. I like that pick, though. I think the Cardinals are a lock. The spread alignment, like it's been moving slowly, half a point and then 1 full point just today alone. So I think that benefits Arizona side of the ball there. With that being said, I'll give my 2 locks really quickly here. This one kills me. I hate to do this because I hate this team with all my heart. But Giants +3 is one of my locks this week. They're 5-1 against the spread this year, so they've been proving everything wrong. And I've been praising not Daniel Jones because I still think he's like just another Jag, like just another guy. But their offensive coordinator, DC, and head coach, they all just have like the perfect scheme for the players. They're like working with what they got. They know that they have to run the ball a lot. They know that their passing has to be like really short yardage, nothing too crazy. They just got Wan'Dale Robinson back. Obviously, he should help boost them up a lot. But I just think that their scheme really is going to allow them to be in close games throughout the season because it's really going to make them be able to control that time of possession a lot. So I think the Giants are going to be in a really good spot this week. And then their over under record right now is 1-4 when it comes to like their Vegas' over under record is 1-4 on them, which proves to me that they can't really gauge this Giants team. They're not able to figure out, all right, do they score a lot? Are they good on defense? And when the over under is wrong a lot, that means Vegas doesn't really know. Granted, it has to do with the opponent as well, but they cannot figure out the Giants at all, which I think benefits the better always. You always want to be able to like have an upper hand on Vegas. You know, I remember in Patty Mahomes' breakout season, Daniel and I were betting on the Chiefs every single week because they only made them like -2 or half the games they had them like as a favorite or an underdog. So if you can take that step ahead over Vegas, it might benefit you a lot. And I think that's the Giants this year so far. So they're my first lock at +3. And then my second lock is going to be the Chiefs -2.5. They're 4-2 against the spread, 0-3 at home, and then 2-1 away. And then this game is away this year. They're in San Fran. And I think it's going to be just a solid bounce back game on all fronts because of that rough game they had in Buffalo. I think Patty's going to go nuclear. I think it's just going to be a really, really good game for the Chiefs. And give me at -2.5, give me Harrison Butker all day to give me a game-winning field goal to hit that bet if worse comes to worse, you know? So those are going to be my 2 locks, Chiefs -2.5 and Giants +3.
Yeah, I like those picks. You know, when Mahomes has the margin of a field goal alone, I like taking that, honestly. It's crazy. So I'll go ahead and get into my locks. I'm, you know, the certified king right now, 2-0 compared to both my co-hosts, 1-1. So let's see if I can keep that going. I'm going to bet again on a team that won me my bet last week. Oops, sorry about the barks. My first bet is going to be Atlanta +6.5 versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati and Atlanta are both ranked back-to-back overall in terms of their overall DVOA at 12 and 13 respectively. Atlanta is 7th overall in their offensive DVOA to Cincinnati's 21st offensive DVOA. So, you know, Atlanta's sneaky offense Cincinnati's DVOA is ranked above Atlanta's. Atlanta's is pretty poor, but I think they're a lot closer than people think. And then with that momentum of the big upset over the 49ers last week for Atlanta, I think that 6.5 is just such a big spread. I don't think Cincinnati is going to be able to beat them by a touchdown or more. I think it's going to be a closer game, a grinder game. So give me Atlanta plus 6.5. And then my second lock of the week is the Jets plus 1.5. I think the Jets are just kind of on an upswing, and I think that the Broncos, compared to their preseason outlook, are on a really big downswing. These are two really, really good defensive teams, and their offenses have been okay, not really crazy. Obviously, Broncos haven't been much. But I really think that the Jets defense is really going to get to Russell Wilson again, and I don't think he's going to have a great game. He's coming in with an injury. And I think that the Jets at plus 1.5 are going to be able to take advantage of that Denver defense being on the field. They're not going to score a ton. This is going to be a stinker game. It's going to be a really tough stinker grinder, but I really think that the Jets could actually take a dub in this one. And I think that the Jets plus 1.5 is going to be my lock. I would have taken the money line, but I just like the plus 1.5. I think that it's moved down a lot. I think they were plus 3 at one point or something like that. So a lot of money's betting on the Jets. So that is my lock of the week as well.
I was going to say you're in good shape because I'm looking at the live line now and it actually moved. It's already at only +1. So you had it at an extra half a point. So the line keeps moving. That means you're getting good value and you're ahead of Vegas right now in terms of what you believe in. So those are all our locks. I hope we can all go 6-0 this week, win you guys some money. And then, so what we're going to do is for the Hungry Dog Parlay, we're going to take those 6 picks. And then we're going to do 2 underdog picks from 2 of us here. And then we'll just make that one giant parlay. And that's your miracle, your miracle shot in the dark to hopefully win you some bread, to recoup some losses. I know it's been a tough couple of weeks for some of my fellow friends. Some of them even hit some retirement. You know who I'm talking about, buddy. With that being said, my underdog pick of the week is definitely going to be the Indianapolis Colts money line at plus 120. Shout out to Ray. I know he's a huge Colts fan. I just think this is a game where it's going to be really tough either way. Like, I don't know who's going to win it. And when I look at games on a book like that and I see the lines and they're a plus, when I think it's such a close game, the spread's only 1.5 right now. To me, that proves that even with the Titans being home, you're usually, the rule of law is if you're home, you get 3 points automatically in your favor. So with it already being less than that, to me, Vegas is kind of like weirded out. They don't know what's going to go on there. On top of that, it being a divisional game and JT coming back and Matt Ryan probably having a boosted confidence, self-esteem, like after that big week. I think they're in good shape to get a little upset here on Vegas. It's nothing crazy. It's only plus 120 right now, but it's a plus. It's a dog. So I think Hungry Dogs run faster, and that's going to be my underdog of the week. How about you, Ray?
Well, number one, I'm loving that. Shout out to you, brother. I love whenever we hear the Colts are going to win. If we go 4-2-1, just expect for you guys might want to block my number, right? Because it's going to be lit. Now, for me, right, I'm going to go ahead against your lock of the week, which is the 49ers plus 3. And I know everybody's going to say, how can you bet on Mahomes with that sort of spread? I think, is it at -3 or is it -2.5 for KC?
It's 2.5. It might have moved since I had it. For me, it's still at 2.5.
So for all you advanced bettors out there, right? Obviously, we all know that 3 is a really key number. So when you have the opportunity to go ahead and get that 2.5, right? I think you have to go ahead and take it. If not, of course, I always say buy a half or buy a full if you're feeling a little funky, right? But I think that the way that the 49ers just kind of run their offense, I think Deebo Samuel is going to be like Burger King, BK, have it your way against that secondary this week. I think Jeff Wilson, unfortunately, I go up against him in Schwep, right? I think he's going to have a pretty decent game. And just in general, again, I think this is going to come down to the Chiefs not being able to overpower anyone anymore, right? I know they used to have the really, really, really big offense, but everything. But I mean, in general, I think that it's just going to be a really good bounce back game in regards to just how the 49ers play in general. I know they're used to being locked down, maybe scoring 25, 30 points, which I think they're going to get this game. And don't be surprised here. I think Mahomes is going to have a really awful game.
Interesting. Maybe if the spread moves to -3, maybe we can be able to thread the needle there with your money line pick. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. So yeah, those are our picks, guys. I hope we can all win you guys some money, man. I'm really excited. I've been on a little hot streak with these teasers. Hoping I can pay out today. Shout out my dog Ray. I know he thinks he invented the teaser, but that's that. Those are the locks of the week, guys. Basically, our show's almost done here. We're just wrapping up with some little Schwep Drama Island, guys. The first two things, I'll just say them, and then you guys can start talking about them, and then I'll chime in, is two trades that went down, kind of. It's mine and Sevilla's trade, and then honestly, another one that I think we should mention was V's and Brown's trade for Joey B. He just threw a pick and got him in. So what do you guys think of those trades?
Go ahead, Cranch.
It's annoying when picks are already being thrown for players straight up. We're seeing maybe the beginnings of a little tank, maybe a little body issue coming in there for Max Brown. Of course, Joey B goes off on me when he gets traded, kind of salty. And then, listen, Seville is the king of trading for injured players. Well, what can we say, man? Shout out Sevilla for those injured boys, D Swift. I love him. I'm a stan, man, but man, he just loves those injured players.
Yeah, for me, I kind of agree with you, even though I think he's doing the right type of chasing when it comes to chasing those players. I know he got D Swift. He also, I believe it was a 2023 7th, or was it a 6th?
Six. So I traded Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, the backfield of them, and then a 2023 6th rounder for Devontae Adams and Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, so I mean, really annoying. I know Rosie, he lost DeAndre Swift, but I think with the way his mind is working this year, he wants his stability and his health. But he got Devontae Adams in return, so I think that he gained a really solid 20, 30 points every week, which is super annoying because I go up against him this week. But in general, again, I mean, whenever Sevilla trades, just because that's our league's own Thanos, right? He's still living off that championship from a couple of years ago. I mean, it's always going to be good to kind of poke the bear there. And then the other trade with Dan and Shvi. I mean, the main thing with me, again, Bengals. Shvi, I believe, offloaded Justin Herbert, who was underperforming, and then got a QB who I think is going to be better rest of the season in Joe Burrow. And then I also believe he got is it that he received one of those stud running backs, or did he already had both Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, for sure. And then also Keenan Allen went over to Dan's team, correct?
Yeah.
No. So the Joe Burrow trade was just like two. I don't remember what picks they were. What picks were they? Some like 6th or 8th round pick and an 11th round pick for Joe Burrow straight up. And then the trade with Dan and Zvi was Mike Williams and Leonard Fournette for Justin Herbert, Alan Lazard, and Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I mean, Dan's kind of biting the bullet. I know he kind of hates himself right now. But Zvi, on the other hand, is someone who's in the trenches, last place right now, but he has really good matchups. You guys already know I think he's going to win. And look, I'm a little bit scared. Zvi is a little bit of an op because if I lose against Rosie's team and then Zvi wins and he has a really good week, then I got to go ahead and take an ESPN body shoot.
Yeah.
You know, I go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Not something I'm not trying to have on Instagram.
You don't want that on this earth. Yeah, man. With that being said, dog, shout out Sevilla. You're my dog, bro. We be trading every year. These kids just be talking. The guys in the league, they talk a lot, but we're just not afraid to trade, bro. We just pull the trigger, you know? Some of y'all be hesitant. I don't know if I want to do that trade. But no.
Sorry to cut you off, brother. Have everybody have your Over Redenbacher out this weekend because that matchup with Ethan and Kranz over here blocked.
That's what I was just about getting into. So that's really some trade drama there. And then some just chit chat going on. Hey, this is a similar pattern that we've been seeing here. I have the headline as teams that don't win like to talk a lot, okay? So Sevilla and Kranz have been butting heads a lot over the past like couple of days in the group chat, and then just so happens they play each other this week. And I know Sevilla was sending some shots because Kranz lost to an Owen team, and then he said he's historically not been good. And like what, episode 2 or 3, I had the same little gripe to pick where I was like, look, kids have one win and they talk the most. So that's just a little drama that's been happening, you know?
Hey, man, listen, when a guy who misses the playoffs over and over and over tries to come at me because he's got one little miniature ring on his finger, man, listen, My man's has started off the season well. He traded away a strong piece. If he loses to me with Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown, it is absolute 4K sent to the gulags. You're getting your neck choppied upper decky,
You might as well
boy.
leave the chat, my brother. You might as well leave the chat. Trust me.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
You know when someone comes at Crans and then he deservedly so gets bright on them, you ain't gonna hear the end of it. You know what I mean? Crans may not start it, but damn sure he's gonna go and end that.
It's gonna be a nasty Sunday. I'm off this Sunday, thank God. So I'm gonna be able to deep dive into all this spew. And that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. We covered our locks. We covered the Schwep matchups. Some little drama that we had, an injury report, and I gave you a little Thursday night preview. And yeah, man, we're just really excited for this week of football. It feels good to be back after having a little week vacation. I promise we won't be doing that again. I think we're going to have an episode every week up until the fantasy season ends. I cannot wait when maybe our teams don't make the playoffs, like God forbid, we can just deep dive into like these matchups and speculate them for whoever's in like semis and championship and stuff. That stuff's going to be sick. I can't wait to do that, even if I'm in it or not. So that's kind of like a way to look at it. If we don't make the championship, at least we got the pod, we get to spew our brains out on it. So yeah, just shout out to all you guys. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video. And I just appreciate you guys so much. More life for all of us, shout out y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. We're sorry about last week. It won't happen again. We got you guys. We know you guys love the pod. It's amazing. We appreciate every single one of you, everybody in the community. So thanks for watching, like, and subscribe, like Rosie said. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks for watching, guys. I know this weekend I sounded, or at least this episode, I sounded a little bit less nervous. Hopefully that's a trend that continues. I'm looking to actually get into a little bit more debatey vibes, right, with the gang here. I appreciate you guys. I apologize for last week's missed episode again. I'll triple down on that. It will not happen again. You guys heard it here live. Yeah, peace, love, keep faith, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace out, y'all. We'll see you next week.